Barnaby Jones will return next Thursday night at 10, 9 Central and Mountain on most of these stations.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. This episode of Word Balloon is brought to you by Ithacon. April 5th and 6th at Emerson Suites on the Ithaca College campus in Ithaca, New York. Saturday, April 5th and Sunday, April 6th. Ticket prices are $25 with kids admission free. Tickets are available at ithacon.org. That's ITHACON.org. Among the guests, Don McGregor of Black Panther fame, Chris Condon, featured in Ultimate Wolverine and Green Arrow, Matt Bors from Ahoy's Toxic Avenger, Mike Gold, known for Green Arrow, Warlord, and Wasteland, and the legendary Louise and Walter Simonson. There'll be cosplay, gaming, and kids' activities. And Ithacon is offering swag bags for the first 250 attendees that buy tickets. These overstuffed swag bags offer $20 to $50 values in comic books and more. Come see all the fun at Ithacon April 5th and 6th at Emerson Suites on the Ithaca College campus in Ithaca, New York. For more details and tickets, come to ithacon.org. Here we go. Very good. All righty. Hang on one second. Just gonna get moved around a little bit. Here we go. All right. Let me see is there a counter? There's not. Where's a clock on me? I don't see a clock, but that's okay. No problem. All right. Here we go.
Yeah, there's one up. Yeah, hang on.
Is there one in the?
No, there's not actually. It's not.
Don't worry about it.
Its new Zoom doesn't seem to show it.
That's all right, man. I got the regular clock I can look at and stuff, so we're cool.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Bryan Hitch, welcome back to Word Balloon. Always good to talk to you, man.
Always a pleasure, John. Anytime.
Well, you got a lot going on right now. We're gonna talk a little bit later about the last days of Lex Luthor. Volume 2 is out, the Black Label book. You and Mark Waid, Kevin Nolan. But I wanted to start things off with what you're doing with Ghost Machine and Redcoat, because the first collection of the first 7 parts just came out a couple weeks ago. I love it. Great story. It's beautiful, and I really congratulations, man. I just texted Johns as well.
Oh yeah, you said you had. Spoke to him just a little earlier, but yeah, thank you. It's it's been terrific. And we just love working on this book. In fact, we were just saying the other day we're only an issue and 2 issues, I suppose, off of the next collection. So we're kind of motoring on a bit. But yeah, I think by the time we're done, there'll be let me think. I don't know, 15 probably volumes. So,
wow, that's great, man. That's fantastic. You'll forgive me. I play catch up, and sometimes I have to, wait till the trade comes out, or wait till I know I'm going to talk to somebody to catch up. So right now, I'm only through 7. Have you released?
Yeah, issue 10, I think, just came out, or is just about to come out. It's the one with Annie Oakley. I think that. Yeah, that was last week. Actually, that came out last week. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah, it's great to walk through history this way, and on the different side. I don't know if you're aware, there's a great book that Rodney Barnes is writing, and I want to say Jason Scott Alexander is drawing, Philadelphia. And
no, I don't know.
There's a little symmetry in terms of, and it's different. It's very different, but that the founding fathers were up to more than we realized back in the day. And I just love the origin of Simon Pure and how it all started, and his adventures through history.
Yeah, and there'll be lots more of it because I mean we when in that first volume we jumped in the first issue like 115, 120 years or something. And then now we're going back and forward across Simon's timeline depending on when we feel like certain like I think so yeah I think issue 14 is during the War of 1812, so it's when the White House burns. That sets up Brad Meltzer's first Ghost series as well, because although that's set in the present day, it follows on from events that Simon was caught up in the War of 1812. And then we do this a really big arc, which may be a whole volume all to itself, actually. And that's set after the events of Volume One. Um, and I'm not going to give anything away about that because it's a really big story for Simon, and it's a story that's going to have an effect on Geiger too. So it's yeah, there's a lot of interconnectivity that's going to be coming up on some of the books. We've got some plans. It's not just the direct involvement between, say, Redcoat and some of the others, like the first Ghost prelude, if you like, and Geiger, but we know the universe is connected, so there'll be stories that can start in Redcoat and follow on, because Simon follows the whole of the history of the unnamed universe. So apart from some direct stories, I mean, issue 11, 12, and 13 introduces the full story of the Northerner. Northerner has been around since I think the Geiger or Junkyard Joe, like in hints, and we've seen bits of him. So we get our first proper introduction in those three issues without giving a huge amount away about him. And then he'll show up again, I think, in Geiger. So yeah, there's a lot of cross-pollination on the books.
How often are you talking to the other artists as far as that kind of connectivity and things?
Well, I mean, Jeff, Jay, Gary, and I talk regularly anyway because we started when we started putting Ghost Machine together. We were on Zoom several times a week, plotting, planning, not just creatively, but building the company. Um, so we still like to keep those connections up between the four of us. But Jeff's working with all of us. So we try to keep relatively well connected. Gary and I message constantly. Jeff and I message constantly, and Jeff and I are working on story together and some other stuff. So we're all in varying degrees of contact. We use a messenger app and a Signal, and actually that seems to have replaced emails because unless you really need to send any kind of attachments and stuff, everybody just communicates via Signal now. So Brian Cunningham checks our schedules. In fact, we have everything up on a big company server anyway, so you can always see what your schedule is. It's very easy. You don't need to ask questions about that because it's right there. Um, but we're constantly in contact. We have a company-wide chat group, and everybody piles into that with everything about from football to watches, cars, comics, business news, whatever. And then each of us have various individual kind of connections and chats, and so we're always constantly in contact, even though we don't all get together as a company until October each year when we go and have a several days before the New York Comic Con, and then we do the show together. And that's become our big company retreat, which we absolutely love doing. We have such a good time.
I understand, man. I gotta make plans to start going to New York again if
Oh, you
that's where
should.
I'm likely. Well, yeah, I just, I'll be honest, man. I hate the layout of the Javits Center and how far it
Oh,
is from
yeah.
everything else, and also, although it's getting better and they are finally building things near the Javits Center to hang out or whatever, but also, man, they make for the press junkets for the TV and film stuff, they make us go to Madison Square Garden. And it's like, well, that's like literally a 20-minute walk both ways and
Yeah.
takes us out of the Javits Center. And it's like, what are you doing? And also, ever since they merged the con with the anime and manga con, when they merged the two cons, it's like
Okay.
completely unnecessary. It's like there was more than enough for both cons to. I mean, listen, I don't mean to tell Reed their business, but it's just such a clusterfuck, frankly. And it's just like, oh my God. So I don't know, man. I haven't gone since 2018, but knowing that all you guys are there and stuff, it's like, all right, there's another reason to go. What are you gonna
Well,
do?
yeah, we're kind of inured from all that stuff anyway, because we just kind of we're huddled, and when we stay well away from, we're about a 40-minute walk from the center where we stay, so we're nowhere near any of the con hotels or any of the other. So we just kind of keep to ourselves because we have a few days together. We do our kind of summit and
Sure.
dinners, and it's really nice to do the show together and then go back to where to our kind of hotel and just hang out and chill and not feel any pressure other than to just relax and enjoy each other's company. And the thing about when we get together, apart from all the fun we have, is that it's a huge creative opportunity as well. And you see that because it doesn't. I mean, we do this anyway, but Pete Tomasi with Peter Snierberg and Francis, they're always in contact, and Pete goes to see Francis all the time, and they work together closely, all three of them.
That's
And
cool. Yeah.
and Jeff and I talk all the time, but it's nice when you're in person. It doesn't take long for. I mean, last October, Jeff and I had plotted roughly to issue 20 something by the time we hit the show, and by the time we left the show we were up to about 70 something. So when you're together like that, a conversation immediately turns into what if this happens and that happens and the other happens, and that happens across with all of us. So it's a lovely creative environment to be in as well as a very supportive one.
The well, let's get back to Redcoat because and I don't want you to spoil because I can go back and I can grab, thankfully I'm on Image's list, so I can certainly go and read eight through 10 and everything
Hmm.
and catch up. But from a general stroke standpoint, for people that do pick up the first trade, it's the origin story, and we
Yeah.
also get into how Simon is an immortal Redcoat, and
Hmm.
it happens during the midst of the Revolutionary War. We learned that his immortality was supposed to be bequeathed to Ben Franklin in this ceremony, and he accidentally kind of stumbles on it. And
Yeah.
Simon is a very inelegant hero. He's certainly kind of stumbling into these things more than by design, and certainly at
Hmm.
least at the very beginning of the story. But we'll stick with the first arc and everything first, and then I do want to know, again, just some broad strokes of what to expect
Okay.
in 8, 9, and 10. But yeah, I first of all, and it's great that Brad's stuff is going to tie into this as well, Meltzer, because he's all about the Freemasons, as I'm sure
No.
he's told you, and
I
I
know. Yeah.
love the iconography of this secret society, and it's got a kind of Freemason feel to it, and certainly. We learn that George Washington hasn't died, is maybe immortal as well, at least where things are left in issue 7.
Hmm.
Might be our big bad. We're not sure. The
Not
father
spoiling
Mark.
anything about
Yeah.
that.
Oh, no, 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 and absolutely not. No, I don't like. It's so funny. I'm sure I've told you before. I love talking to Jeff, and then we finish recording. He's like, "So you want to hear what's going to happen next?" I'm like, "No, man. I want to read it." I'm like, "Don't do that, man." I mean, I know there are people that, yeah, give me a
Yeah.
big spoiler. I'm like, sorry, man. I'm old school. It's like, no, let me read the story and
Yeah, no,
enjoy
trust
it.
me, if you're having read those first steps, you don't want me to spoil what we've got planned in coming arcs. You really don't, because I want it to hit as well as issue 7 hit. Actually issue 7, that happened because Jeff and I we were doing the show in Philadelphia last year, and we went down to the old town area, the old city area, and went to see all the Liberty Bell and that stuff, and
Yeah.
just for an evening before we were due to go to the Ghost Machine dinner. And we ended up in this bar around the corner from where the Liberty Bell is, which is the second oldest bar, or one of the oldest bars anyway. Fantastic place. Took loads of pictures of it. But we were sitting there just having a glass of wine each before getting a cab back to where the Ghost Machine dinner was being had. And that scene, that issue 7 was originally going to be a few pages at the end of issue 6, just like an epilogue scene. We started talking about it, and within half an hour and a couple more glasses, we'd completely turned that into an issue, literally word for word. Jeff said it's the easiest he ever wrote because he literally wrote it in a day, and I think I drew the issue in a week
Wow.
because we'd done it. In our heads, it was so complete when we left that bar that evening. I mean, we were slightly half cut when we arrived at the Ghost Machine dinner. They all thought it was hilarious as we rolled into the dinner. But that whole issue came out of just us talking about that scene, and then we got so involved in the emotions of Simon and Albert, and it's still a powerful issue for both of us because unexpectedly, from when we started this originally with the 80-page giant a few years ago, the Geiger 80-page giant, Simon has just become this character that means a huge amount to both of us emotionally because to some degree we're writing about our own life experiences, emotional life experiences anyway, not obviously physical ones, because I'm certainly not an immortal British soldier. I do plan to live forever, but I have yet not been made immortal. But both of us have gone through at times various life affirming, life changing experiences that allow you to understand that what matters to you emotionally and how you get there. And the hero's journey is really what this stuff is all about. You're always trying to write that, but the inevitability with a thing like the standard superhero kind of formula is powers or abilities or gifts are given, and then you're either going to be a hero or a villain. Simon's just an ordinary guy who's a fuck up, and and he had an awful early upbringing, and we're going to get into that in later issues. But I know Simon's backstory completely, and he's just an ordinary guy that's gifted with immortality, but never ever learnt how to live. He's not afraid of death because he doesn't die, but he's never understood how to live and what matters in life. And that's where the character's interesting because despite all the reluctant heroics he often gets involved with, what matters is the emotional core of each story and how Simon learns a little bit about of his life. And this came from Jeff and I talking and me jokingly saying that my wife had said that I can learn from my mistakes and I repeat them almost exactly. And but that's what you do in life. Nobody's really heroic or villainous, but we often make mistakes. And how long does it take to learn from those mistakes? And how long does it take to build a better life? And is that life one that helps make other people better? Or there's all of the, Simon is experiencing a life essentially of pain and death. So what does that do to him as a personality? He always seems to manage to be cheerful to a point, but he doesn't ever want to be able to willingly take that from people, take that pain and that punishment from people, and then help them. But he's going to learn how to do that. I mean, we Jeff and I know very much the absolute end of the story. We've always known the end of the story. And when we originally planned to do this, excuse my waffling, but when we originally planned to do this, it was going to be maybe two or three, probably 3 volume miniseries. And so we'd have the introduction series, we'd have a good middle and the end, like 3 movies.
Sure.
And then we just got before we even started issue 1, or maybe it was the time we were starting issue 1 last year. We just said pretty much at the same time to each other, this has got to be an ongoing because there's so much more depth we can plumb with Simon and so much more detail we can give to his life instead of just saying, this is how he begins, this is where he learns, and this is how he ends. It's a journey, and it's a journey of centuries. So why don't we take the time to do what a movie can't and really explore all those little detours issue by issue and all those little incremental growths and steps backwards, because for every 4 steps forward, there's 3 backwards. And just take the time to really enjoy hanging out with the character. I think we'll know when we're ready to bring it to a conclusion. So we know what that final arc will be and we know how to get there. We know pretty much everything about the character now in terms of how his journey is going to pan out. So it's really just up to us in terms of how long do we really want to enjoy this journey? How long are we enjoying it? I think we'll know when we're flogging a dead horse, or even close to exhausting the horse, or possibly even mildly tiring it. I think at that point we'll know it's time to bring the book to a conclusion because we know where all the peaks and troughs are on it. But we just love working with the character, and without breaking a sweat, we've plotted so far ahead. That not to tell those stories actually would be painful. So we know it's at least a 10-year run.
Wow.
I mean, I was talking to Jeff because Jeff's doing other books, and there's some of the projects I'm going to do on the side as we go. But
Okay.
even if I do 12 issues a year, even if I don't come with anything new, it's going to take me about 17 years to do all the books that we've got planned for Ghost Machine, and we always come up with new stuff. So I'm going to have to get a lot quicker again.
Well, I've truly, Brian, I've told friends that I really do respect how you have adapted your style to get quicker. You know, at least that was at least my interpretation of what you were telling me, especially back when you were doing
Yeah,
Hawkman, for example, and like,
that yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
that was definitely a learning experience in terms of how I see my work and how others see my work. But it was, yes, there was certainly a determination to, and I did it with authority. The determination with authority was always to, no matter what, the book would be on time. It would be monthly. We would do every issue. There'd be no skips. There'd be no breaks, and we did that. And I think possibly to date, only Sean Phillips and I have ever done that at Wildstorm. So, um, but I mean, it takes a slightly different um, process and mental process, and part of that for me was also that I'd been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and medicated for it, and that was game changing enough. Therapy was game changing as well. So all of those factors play into, a completely different mental health. When I came to Hawkman and saying, this is what I want to get out of doing Hawkman. Um, and Hawkman actually was only supposed to be the first few issues because that only happened because there was such a break between Warren writing issue 1 and 2 of Batman's Grave. Um, because I'd drawn issue 1 and there was a break, and Dan said, well, actually, the only thing we've got that's available immediately is going to be the Hawkman book. And to the you know in all fairness to them, there's no way the Hawkman book could afford the contract rate I had at DC at the time for doing Justice League and Batman and some of the other stuff. But they agreed to pay it, and there's no way that book made them a cent of profit from issue 1 onwards. But so I think once I'd got started, I think the hope was, and Warren had certainly written issue 2 by that point, that I'd jump off with issue, I don't know, 4 or something. But nobody said anything, so I kind of carried on because I really enjoyed working with Rob on that book, and I really enjoyed the process. But the process of being able to work quicker had already come post Justice League after I'd had that sort of abortive and unpleasant experience writing the book. By the time I got back to drawing it, something had changed, and I think what had changed was that um, I felt a little bit more released. I think I'd often felt like I was a frustrated writer. And getting a chance to write sometimes quite badly, but understanding that, the process that I was dropped into on that book was not conducive to somebody trying to find their feet, shall we say. There's a lot of great ideas, just not a lot of great stories, because they're always a first draft or a good draft away from being the way you wanted, but the schedule was what it was, and it was a bit so it was very unpleasant. So by the time I got back, and the first thing I did after that was Hawkman Fan with Jeff Lemire, and Kevin Nolan was inking it. So it was doubly freed up because I knew Kevin inking it was going to be, well, it doesn't matter what line I put down because Kevin is just going to make it look great. But that was liberating actually. And it was a single character after having done team books for the last 25 years. And suddenly I found myself, I drew a page in like 3 hours. I thought, that can't be right. And I thought, I'll do another one. So I did another one, and that took 3 hours. Like, holy shit. This is what other people like that don't draw team books. It's like it was extraordinary. So I am and knowing that Kevin was doing it, so the penicillin was actually quite tight, but knowing Kevin was doing it was just liberating mentally. And that never left. And when we did Hawkman, it became more about understanding process. I used to fear process. I used to think process was a machine-like quality that might stifle so-called creativity, as pompous as that sounds. And it is kind of pompous. But actually, the opposite is true. If you can absolutely master your process, so that no matter what you do, you understand that you can achieve whatever you need to achieve, and you understand how long it takes you to do A, B, C, or D, then it actually unlocks unlimited creativity because the analogy I've used in the past is like a concert pianist who has trained all his life, so he doesn't ever have to think about how to play the piano. He only has to think about how the music needs to sound. So everything else is automatic. And that's what drawing's like. I don't have to think about how to draw anything anymore, or even how to tell a story. I just it's just an entirely automatic process. It's almost like I slightly switch off and just make, and it's a music analogy, but I just know how the music needs to sound. And so I just play the music. And it's hugely liberating and stress free. It's just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, that really began at that period. So the speed came as a byproduct of all of that stuff. But also that, to be honest, I think a lot of the obsessive over detailing of things like because the Authority wasn't overly detailed if you look at it compared with the Ultimates, but the Ultimates was overly detailed. That I think was a huge sign of my mental ill health because the obsessive compulsions that were involved in it, the stress that came thinking, oh, somebody's going to notice that line's out of place, so that small square inch of thing isn't right. That's not healthy. And that's what it was like over the whole thing. It got worse and worse and worse. And there's a period after that where I feel my work got more and more stiff and ugly and deformed and lifeless. There were bits here and there that weren't, but I think until I got to that post Justice League thing, that's where I feel like the energy came back and the life came back into the work. So, only 20 years later, but hey.
Hey, listen, man. You start getting better tomorrow. I mean, or even today. And truly, that is so great to hear. And I really, you and I have only started talking, I think, since you've, found
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
new way to draw. But no, that's great. Well, it sounds like, again, you are doing great mentally and everything, and feeling
Very well. Yeah.
excellent, man. No,
Yeah.
that's great. Well, again, that's really interesting because at least from a reader standpoint, there is a lot of detail in Redcoat. I mean,
Hmm.
those backgrounds are amazing, and there's tons of characters, and we can talk about the characters in a bit.
Mm.
But is when you talk about now, because obviously it sounds like you and Jeff are very much co-plotting. So beyond, well, yeah, tell me, man, because it does sound like you're
Co-creating, or because Jeff's still a writer, I'm still the artist, but
sure.
but um Jeff is unique in his almost insistence of in collaborating as much as his partner wants to. He's never precious about notes or thoughts or comments or involvement. Far from it, because we as a team actually on the book, we go back and forth on stuff all the time, from even including Brad and Rob's notes, and I think that makes it better. Actually, having a team like this is really terrific because Brad, and we call Brad's labeled the colorist because that's the tradition, but Brad is an artist in his own right and is a painter too, and what he brings to the book is just extraordinary, really. And Rob, likewise. I mean, both of those guys are at the Cubit School, so they're not the letterer and the colorist. They're contributors to the way the page reads and looks and feels, and that can't be understated too. And when you're working with people like that, there are times I actually I get to the end of the issue, and I'm about to send Brad coloring notes or Rob lettering notes, and they've already worked it out between them. They've got it, and you think, oh, that's great. They're already ahead of me and probably improving on what I was going to ask for anyway. So it's a joy, really, in that respect. That relieves a lot of stress because you know that however much effort you're putting into it, everybody else in the team is putting the same amount of effort into it. So I mean, yeah, I was diverging there, but yeah, Jeff is unique in his Jeff loves collaboration. I think that's possibly why he liked the whole Hollywood thing, is because we're writers' rooms and that stuff. I think that's where he thrives. Jeff on his own in a room, I mean, yes, typing stuff up, but Jeff on in a room creatively is I think anathema to him. He thrives on discussion, discourse, and that's why when we get together, so much stuff happens because we both do that. So, a trip to a wine bar for Jeff and I is an excuse to find 20 more issues of story or a new idea altogether. It's terrific.
That's excellent, man. And it's funny mentioning Kevin, and we're going to talk later about
Mhm.
Superman and Luthor and all. But your inker now for Redcoat.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, and again, I don't mean to diminish the inker's job, but also it all looks like Bryan Hitch to me. And truly, whether it's Kevin or, and forgive me, your inker on
Andrew
Redcoat.
Curry, yeah. Well, Andrew and I have been friends for 30 plus years. So Andrew actually inked the first half dozen issues of the Ultimates way back when.
Oh, okay,
And he and I worked on and off together. He inked Hawkman as well. Um,
okay,
and so, but Andrew is also local. He just lives down the road. So, um, and I think Andrew's Andrew wasn't really an inker until he started inking me. He didn't really ink his own work either. Um, so he's really learned to be an inker on my work. But he's also very keen to give me back without being that derogative tracer term. Andrew's very keen to give me back what I pencil, not something in a different style. Um, and and that's great, So I want it to look like me
well,
because,
sure,
but ultimately it's the inking lines that print, not the penciling lines. Um, so what you want is that partnership that allows. I mean, because it isn't quite how I would ink myself because I don't
okay,
pencil the same way because you're penciling slightly differently for somebody to interpret. Um, so I see differences, but I'm aware that probably the casual reader probably wouldn't notice any differences because that's just that it's down to brush strokes, isn't it? You know, in paintings, do you notice the difference between a Caravaggio brush stroke and I don't know, Rembrandt? I wouldn't, but
I get it. Well, and again, but it always with your work too. A lot of times it comes down to the faces and the emotions that you put in
right.
on these characters and stuff. By the way, and speaking of emotions, I'm so glad you guys chose to make that seventh issue such a conversation between Albert and Simon, and that was great to see. It reminded me, and forgive the other comparisons, but uh, uh, Jerry Conway. No, was it Jerry? No, it was Elliot. Elliot S. Maggin wrote a great Superman novel, Last Son of
Oh
Krypton.
yeah, yeah, I know the one. Yeah,
And Einstein is in there and stuff. And I kind of love when people use Einstein in this way. Much better than not a great movie, but I have to admit I'm a sucker for Walter Matthau. But that IQ movie that he made with Meg Ryan, Uncle Albert,
oh yeah, yeah.
and to quote Paul McCartney, "We are so sorry, Uncle Albert," because yeah, it's just that for me was like, all right, too far. But no, this is great. You got Einstein as a kid helping Simon out, and then that beautiful seventh issue where he comes back and sees him on his
Yeah.
deathbed, and I mean, that's beautiful, man.
I
That's
mean, you got to
great.
imagine, you got to listen to that in the voice of Tom Conti from Oppenheimer.
That's
He's got
great.
the reason I always think about. I mean, yeah, it's just that Conti has such a warmth to his voice and such a beautiful human expressiveness to his face. Is there's nothing cold about Conti at all. I've always loved him as an actor, anyway. But
Agreed.
his Einstein was just so human and fragile at times as well. I love that about that, and the voice, the way his voice, he's always had this lovely, rich, cracked voice, but his just delicate German was lovely. I adored that. So
That's
that's what I
beautiful, man.
imagine in my head in that
I was
scene.
I was gonna ask, absolutely, man. No, that's terrific. That's terrific. There was a '50s puppet show, and actually they made cartoons of it as well. Beanie and Cecil were the
Never heard of
characters.
that one.
Yeah, it's obscure, but in its time it was certainly popular. And this great humorist Stan Freberg was part of the creative process. Was one of the puppeteers, did the voices, and he learned that while Einstein was at Princeton, he would like if he was in the middle of a conversation or whatever, listen, I gotta go. I gotta watch Time for Beanie. And he was this massive like fan of this children's puppet show that
I
had kind of
love
a
that.
good,
I
yeah,
love that.
exactly,
That
man. But
sounds
that
like
is
our Albert. It's exactly what our Albert would do.
that's what I'm thinking,
Yeah.
man. Absolutely, man. That's terrific. Are there portions of the story coming up that are your ideas? Because I know this is very much an American story. Although obviously we are going to go into Simon's past, which obviously would be taking
Mm.
place, I'm assuming, in England.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, are you contributing
Oh yeah.
different
I mean,
like
the thing is, I
kernels of
contribute.
history?
I contribute to pretty much every issue in one way or another. And yeah, because
Well, sure.
we text back and forth constantly with stuff. Um, like, wouldn't it be an? What about this for an idea? And it becomes an issue or a story arc. So yeah, constantly it's hard to find where one of us ends and the other begins. Honestly, with this. Um, but Jeff is the writer, I'm the artist, so there are those divisions. But because I don't write the script and he doesn't draw the comic, but we're constantly in each other's space and constantly back and forth and everything. It is a genuine collaboration, and they're always much more fulfilling, both creatively and personally, especially when we get on so well. I mean, I'll be honest. Um, I mean, I'd felt for some years that I was repeating myself, and I've said this before. I was drawing things explode and rubble and big shit, and all of this sort of stuff. And what was lacking for me, and I didn't realize this till we started putting Redcoat together. Really, what had been lacking for me was that I didn't care. I didn't have any emotional involvement. And that, the last time I had that, okay, there are three times I've had that. Was the Authority, the Ultimates, and Hawkman. And all of those things have been collaborations to some degree or other. Or you feel involved, or you feel connected. You have a good relationship with the writer. On Venom, I was working with two writers. I had one brief conversation with before I started, and then never heard from either of them again. Even when I finished, I did 17 consecutive issues, some of which were double shipped, one of which was double sized, never missed a date, even as late as some of the scripts came in. And I got to the end of it, I didn't get a single, even though I'll say thanks, nothing, just nothing.
I'm sorry
Um,
to hear that, man.
it's
That's
just the,
ridiculous.
but it's just the way it is. You're just an art robot, on some of this stuff. That's what
Yeah.
it turns into. My involvement with Ultimate Invasion was originally with Donny Hickman before he couldn't do it, and sorry, Donny Cates, and then Jonathan Hickman took over, and Jonathan initially seemed keen to kind of have some sort of connectivity and involvement. And again, we had one conversation, then I never heard from him again. Pages came in, never heard from him. Finished the book, never heard from him. Um, so it was just a cold, sterile experience because I wasn't connected with the story, the writer, the characters. It was just drawing pictures, and that's not what I'm not interested in drawing pictures. I'm interested in telling stories. But I've got to feel like it's our story, not his story or her story or
Sure.
your story. Um, so I think that connectivity is important, and I think that's what makes something like Redcoat really joyful. And again, even the Superman thing, Wade and I go way back, um, and but I'm emotionally connected to the character. And Mark wrote such a beautifully emotive story that it was very piecemeal because we did issue one and we did Venom and Ultimate Invasion, then issue two and three, and but it's that connectivity, that thing. You've got to feel like you not just care about the people you're working with, but you care about the characters you're telling stories with. And that's why issue seven was powerful, is because Jeff and I felt every emotion that was in that. You probably don't even feel a portion of what we felt when we read that, when we wrote that and drew that. And there was a time after we'd done it, we couldn't even. There was a couple of pages neither of us could look at without filling up or
Wow.
having a real emotional reaction to. Um, and actually that happened across, within the company when people read that issue. It's the same couple of scenes, and you think, well, if even a part of what we're feeling comes through in the book to people reading it, we're doing something right. But that doesn't come by accident. That comes because you care deeply about the characters and you know them deeply and emotionally. You know exactly how they're going to act. You just drop them into a scene and you know exactly how they're going to behave and how they're going to react and what their emotions are going to be. And that makes it a joy to work on this stuff. Because as I say, I'm not interested in drawing pictures. I love telling stories. Um, but Simon's story just feels like that there's a decade or so in it for us as creators without even remotely getting bored. And that's rare, genuinely rare, I think.
Well, again, that's why I'm really rooting for you guys because I mean, I've known you all individually, or a lot of you individually for some time, and it does obviously feel like there's a one direction for all of you going in the same direction. The collaboration comes through, and
Yeah.
I can appreciate what you're saying. Absolutely. And yeah, again, I felt the Hawkman story was very personal, and I could tell what you and Robert were doing with that story, and it felt like again, we were on this journey with Carter as he
Yeah.
was learning more and more about himself, and
Yeah.
that was great. And as we are doing with Simon's story now too, I love. And also another character that I'm really enjoying is, and it was a great surprise when it was revealed, Benedict Arnold apparently
Oh
also
yeah.
is another immortal that we're dealing with. Is his fate is, I'm gonna despite what happens at the arc and
Well,
everything, it might be
in
up in the air.
1892, Benedict's stuck at the bottom of the Atlantic under an enormous piece of ship, but unfortunately, the man can't die. Yeah. I mean, I just think Benedict is constantly being eaten by fish and sea life and still not dying and regenerating and whatnot. So
Much like Simon was telling Albert and stuff. Like, hey man, I've been stabbed, I've been burned, whatever. I'm kind of been there, done that. I also love that you went to the Gilded Age because that
oh
age
yeah.
of late 1800s, again, as an American history buff,
Yeah, yeah,
fascinates the hell
yeah.
out of me.
Oh yeah,
So yeah,
but the thing is that there's so much rich visual material to explore across all of these decades. Whether you're just in a farmstead where the bloody benders did their horrible deeds, it's just I can't imagine ever getting bored exploring the centuries of American independence. Um, there's just so much to deal with. I know we're not going to do anything with Simon pretty much set in the modern age because that's going to be taken care of by other books.
okay,
Um, and we know Simon is alive in Geiger's time, uh,
right,
but we have so much foundational stuff to tell in different periods of Simon's history. I don't think we'll probably ever go much. We'll probably, I mean, apart from that one scene in the 1950s with Albert, I don't think we'll ever much go beyond the 1930s.
okay,
We did talk about something set in the 70s in New York because 70s feels like a period too, and that's incredibly visually rich in terms of what you can and thematically rich and
oh
culturally
yeah.
rich. So never say never because if we can't get the right story, we'll do the story. Um, but yeah, I absolutely adore the research that goes into this stuff. One of my favorite things actually was in issue 2 was drawing that double page spread of the ball scene. Um, I, I mean, I don't suppose many other people would enjoy that. I just adored it. I thought it was fab. Had a great time doing that. Actually, the thing that took me the longest on that, believe it or not, was a thin pan on the top of the spread with the horses and carriages and the buildings. That took me an absolute age to do because you can't get all the reference for that. It's not like you can go out and shoot that. You actually have to build that from little bits of reference that you can see, well, a building might look a bit like this, then you have to construct everything. Same with the horse and carriage, getting all that stuff in perspective. So it's a challenging book, certainly, but I think that's one of the reasons I love it because it is challenging. So it's flexing me. I don't get bored. There's no way I could get bored with this because every issue there's something new to figure out. I mean, I thought the Annie Oakley issue was going to be easy when I read the script. But it turned out to be one of the hardest things I did, and none of it looks like it's on the page that it was hard to draw. It's not like it was exceptionally detailed or huge vistas of this, that, and the other, or like in issue 11, there's a double page spread of the Civil War battle, and that was easy compared with what I was doing with the Annie Oakley thing. But these little things like getting naturalistic body language with people holding rifles from different angles And again, there's not a lot of reference for these periods of stuff. So you can get reference for the rifles and what Annie used, and you
Right.
can get certain reference shots for people holding stuff similar to what you want, but you can't draw the picture just based on the reference. The reference informs the picture. You have to find the shot that you want, then get the reference that kind of allows you the detail to make it, the verisimilitude of the shot. But actually, it took a hell of a lot of figuring out some of that stuff. Some of the easiest looking, and you look at that panel and go, yeah, it looks it's a panel, is somebody's firing a gun. I say that took me freaking 2 hours to figure that shit out, you know, page after page of it. So, and I was crawling through the issue, saying to Jeff, I don't know what it is with this issue, but I cannot get more than a page a day done. And Gary's going, what? Only a page a day? I was like, yeah, only a page a day. It's like, oh, fuck off.
No, but do you use photographs to convey the emotion and stuff in some of your people? Because again,
Some,
I hear
yeah,
what you're saying, but yeah, so
some.
like to get somebody with a flintlock rifle, say, and you really got to get in their face and stuff. Yeah, what do you like? Yeah, how do you achieve it?
Um,
I don't mean
well,
to
I mean,
tell your magic tricks, but you know what I'm saying.
well, I mean, again, I tend to do the layouts before I find the reference,
Okay.
so that way I get the shots I want, the angles I want. But then sometimes finding exactly what you want, so you can look at it and kind of think, yeah, that's the way the gun looks at that angle, that's the way the hands work, and actually get just that hand gripping that, you know, from any angle. So
Yeah.
it's me with my iPhone a lot of the time, just, with mirrors and stuff to get the hands and the facial expressions come naturally with the dialogue. Sometimes they're referenced, sometimes not. But even if you take the reference for a face, it works more as a piece of construction. So you get things in the right place. The
Yes.
expressions come on top of that. It's like having an armature for a piece of clay modeling. You have to actually add the clay and mold the clay, but the photo ref, if I use it, works as an armature, not as a finished piece.
I'm with you.
So yeah, so you use what you can, honestly. And I'll take pictures if I can. I've got kids that my youngest Bertie is slightly older than Albert was, but at the end of issue one, when Simon is dug out and that shot of Albert, I couldn't figure. I was laying that out for ages. I couldn't get the shot that I wanted right, so I got Bertie to stand at the bottom of the stairs in the right position. And I took photos of him with my phone from several stairs above him, and I got the right thing. So I was able to look at the phone and then and that was it, done in seconds, got it figured out. So sometimes you need to see it to be able to do it, because as much as you can imagine what you want to be able to do, I'm not a Disney-like cartoonist where I can just kind of do it in a few lines. I kind of need to understand the construction of a thing, and how to build it, if only in my head, because I actually I do very little construction on the page. I tend to, even when I'm doing layouts, I tend to work directly into the outline of the figure straight away, just in blue pencil to work it out. I don't do all the underdrawing and where muscles are and clothes. I just sort of I see that in my head. It's Andrew finds that fascinating because he has to build everything from cylinders and put and armatures and that kind of stuff, and whereas I go straight to an outline because I can see all that stuff in my head. um it's just different ways and different strokes, I guess.
How about the backgrounds for the Gilded Age scenes? I do you look at like Martin Scorsese's Age of Innocence or some of these
um
films that have been also
yeah,
great? There's a great documentary that the public television did about the Gilded Age a year or two ago, and again, I'm fascinated by that period. But you really seem to, at least from my references of what I've read and what I've watched, it seems like you nailed it. But yeah, so
there is a lot of stuff out there for that period because photography was alive in that period. So there's a lot
yep,
of stuff you can see. It's not necessarily great imagery because it's low resolution and quite grainy, but
certainly.
it gives you the dress and so on. And in terms of something like that, it's very easy to find people doing ballroom dancing, and then you get the how people work together and where the figures lock and so on. And then so it helps you construct the stuff, and then you can put the Gilded Age costumes on top of them. And in terms of interiors and things like that, there's so much stuff from New York mansions. Actually, there's a after, and I love that. This just shows you how cyclical life can be sometimes. So my after we did the New York show last year, my wife and my two youngest boys, every time we've done the New York, so it's now our tradition as a family because we've done it 2 years running. So obviously it's a tradition. Is that I get back from
That's not
New
two in a
York.
row.
Yeah, I get back from New York and then we go away somewhere as a family because it's the school holidays the week after. If it's the school holidays the same time, they'd all come to New York with me. So, but this year this last year we went back to New York to stay because the kids wanted to go back to New York because they love New York too. And we stayed in this place called the Fifth Avenue Hotel, which is down near it's on Fifth, obviously, but it's just down by the near the Flatiron district.
Sure.
I think 23rd, I want to say. I think it's Fifth and 23rd. Anyway, um, fabulous hotel, just gorgeous place. But although it's got a beautifully built high rise behind it, the original front building is a former Gilded Age mansion, one of the few left in New York. Beautiful. They call it the mansion too, but it's got the public spaces and a few of the room suites in there. Anyway, this was just having drawn all that stuff to be sitting, and it was beautifully appointed, fabulous hotel. But we were just sitting there. I was just in my element because just living in a sort of semi-Gilded Age ourselves in what was the
Yes.
ballroom. That was the restaurant, is what was the ballroom. So we're just sitting there having breakfast every morning, thinking this is just life and art meeting. So I had a fab time. No, I love that stuff. I love the research. I love the history. I love the being immersed in it. And I love putting that into the work because I want it to feel alive and have that feeling of reality, even though, I keep saying we're not making a documentary series here. It's a fantasy series based on history. So anachronisms, I can live with anachronisms.
Sure.
I am not above um, saying this is a shot, this is in Philadelphia and using a New York street because it looks better. If it looks right and it looks good for the scene, I'll shoot it there, as it were. Because that's how films work after all. So,
No,
um,
honestly, man, living in Chicago, thank God, unlike New York, as you know, and the many times you've been there and stuff, constantly rebuilding, constantly knocking down
yeah.
old buildings and then building new ones. And it is such a tragedy because thankfully Chicago, I think, is a little better of hanging on to some of our more
Mhm.
historic, ancient structures. And maybe especially given we went through the fire back in the
Yeah, that's
1870s
true.
and everything. So maybe there isn't even more of, hey, let's hang on to the history as much as we can. But
Well, I'm
yeah,
sure
there are
Simon's going to be visiting Chicago before long, I'm sure. Um,
excellent,
but actually,
fantastic.
I found some amazing resources, photograph, for reference libraries, on different cities from New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, Boston. I've got a vast library now of I've labeled every street I can find, building I can find, different dates, so I can go to this stuff and see what things look like because ultimately I want it to feel as even for those of us that don't know what things look like, I'd like it to look like it should look like. And it's fascinating. It's really wonderful to have that stuff. I mean, once you get beyond like 18, further back than about 1870, there's nothing. It's all
Sure.
drawings and paintings
Well,
and
sure. Yeah.
so on. But it's still, there's enough information there to do it. Like the Battle of Trenton in the beginning was fun, but there's nothing but paintings for that. So
No, I understand, man. Well, as I've given it up to you before, man, when back in the Ultimates, when you had Giant Man, was it Giant Man and Cap
it was,
that were,
yeah,
yeah,
in
the big
Boston,
fight
yeah,
scene, and the
yeah,
Red Lion, and I'm like, oh my God, I go to the
yeah.
Red Lion all the time. That's fantastic.
That's because Paul Mounts, our colorist, was from Chicago, so he went and photographed all that for me. So it was terrific. I just said, "Look, it's going to be there. Can you find me a location?" So he went and shot all that stuff for me. It's great.
That's excellent, man. That reminds me, I haven't talked to Mountain forever. I'm gonna have to like touch base with him, see how he's been, and stuff. It's been a while. He moved down to Chicago,
Oh,
and
did
now I don't
he?
see him. Yeah, so now I
Yeah.
don't. He moved to Florida, so now I don't see him as much as I did when he was local and everything. Hell, we used to go to the same karaoke bar for God's sake.
I suspect it gives him more opportunity to wear loud shirts.
He doesn't mean much encouraging. That's very true.
No, I
So
know.
I honestly now, and especially now that you're telling me there's going to be so many arcs coming and stuff, just again, the story potential really is kind of endless, and
The
it is
whole of
wonderful.
American history is available for fantasy, and every historical figure and event, and even the stuff you don't know about. There's, I mean, but we keep telling people, the history isn't always what you think it is. Anyway, I mean, and the perception of history changes with generations because it's sanitized and modernized, and you forget just how bad some of it was, such as, Wall Street was founded on the slave trade.
You bet.
And George Washington was inaugurated right there, so as the first president, and you have to see those connections. And the slave trade was begun by both the Africans and the British. It wasn't begun by the Americans, and there's a lot of there's so much. And actually, I'm learning about this because there's stuff I didn't know. I mean, I knew some of the basics of American history, but um, I the War of 1812 to a British is the war between Britain and France with the Napoleonic Wars, of course, and of course that's what this was an offshoot of. But it involved Canada and America and British Canada because it's a part of the British Empire.
Certainly. Yes.
And so you end up with and the French not coming to the aid of the Americans, and so that was the new wrinkle on me in terms of what I'd learned about in school. So I find that I love history. So this is, fascinating to constantly learn some new stuff and then figure out new stories around it. It's great.
That's excellent, man. No, I get it, and you're right. The more I learn about history, the more I learn. Again, that's why I love talking to Meltzer and everything
Yeah,
because he's
yeah,
all about that
of
too.
course.
What
Yeah,
that'd be. You guys have never collaborated, have you?
we
You
did a
and Bryan.
Batman story together.
Totally forgot. Totally forgot, man. Shame
No,
on me, man.
Brad and I would love to work together when time allows. I
Certainly.
love Brad to bits. I love the man. Is terrific and is a font of all knowledge and he's just a terrific person. It's always nice to chat with him. So you never say never. It's just I'm going to have to do 18 issues a year to do some of the stuff I want to get through.
Well, yeah, getting back to, again, because this is a kind of a full commitment with Redcoat. And are you going to take breaks between arcs or anything? I mean,
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I can do an issue in around 3 weeks. It takes about 3 weeks, but then there's the wraparound cover. There's some now I'm doing a bunch of variant covers for all of the books in rotation.
sure,
Um, and then life gets in the way occasionally too.
of
So you
course.
end up with it's so I'd like to try and marshal that time a little better so I can make that week in the month more available because I'd like to start. There's a couple of things I'd like to tickle on, and one of which I'm not going to say much about it, but one of which fits perfectly in the Redcoat world. Um, but it's just we have to be careful. I'm not going to jeopardize the schedule on Redcoat to do something else, but I do want to get to the point where I can do some other bits here and there. I'd like to write and draw them, but I certainly going to want to write them. So I know we'll see how it goes. I'm not there's always the it's a busy life with the company because there's a lot going on we can't talk about and there's a lot of things happening we can't talk about yet. We will be soon.
No
So
problem.
it's a busy creative landscape. Um, so my priority is Redcoat, and we want to do regularly between 10 and 12 issues a year. That will be our commitment. Maybe with some um, if we can do 12, we'll do 12. If stuff gets in the way between life and conventions, like then we try and plan for it. It's been a bit of an education in terms of how we set up and schedule things and stick to schedules. Everybody in the company is terrific because they're kind of they're self-starters. They don't need to be driven with a whip because we're all really loving what we're doing. and also we're all very, very committed to it, and everybody's working in the areas they really want to work in. Ivan really wanted to do horror, and so Hyde Street is an absolute joy for him. Francis is working exactly what Francis wants to work on. Pete's got him and Peter covered, and probably more besides. Jay's doing work that he kind of for stuff he created when he was a kid. And he plans this to be the rest of his career, with
Wow.
Rook. So,
Yes.
and there's more besides. Lamont's Soulless book that's coming, just been announced, and and there's more. Actually, I can't tell you about those ones. Anyway, everybody's doing books that they're really, really committed to because these are in areas they really want to work in. I mean, I say Jeff and I would. This was originally going to just be some mini series why we would both do other things, um, and it just became an ongoing because we loved doing it, which has meant I have had to put some things on the back burner. I still want to get to them, but I'm not going to do it at the cost of Redcoat.
Understood. Is from a business standpoint, how are things going with Ghost Machine? Was the
Terrific.
diamond issue like, is that impacted you guys at all?
Positively, actually, yeah.
In what way positively?
It's a bit complicated, but essentially, there's been some things that meant that our orders have increased. I think it's that some retailers found themselves with a little bit more money to spend because some other things weren't happening because Diamond couldn't distribute them. So they've ordered some of our books instead. So whilst we were initially concerned there would be a drop, there hasn't been. But we're distributed by Luna anyway, and Diamond got our books from Luna. So
Ah,
um, when for those that were buying through Diamond, so without getting into the nitty gritty of it, it's not really kind of affected us at all except positively.
that's great. That's great to hear, man. Again, I'm thrilled, and no, I'm truly, man, I'm rooting for you guys, and really,
Well,
when as far and it's again beyond the creative process and everything. This is your company. You guys
Well,
are
yeah,
all,
but it's
you know,
we've got some terrific people that work on the non front
creators.
facing side. With Mike Cotton who runs the publishing side. I mean, he's been in comics almost as long as comics have been comics. I mean, he only looks like he's in his 40s. The man's obviously about 120, um, but Mike's terrific. And has such a handle on all of that stuff. And we have Danny Ward, who um, previously was working as a retail liaison with another company, but before that, she was in retail. So her role in the company is just to constantly be in daily liaison with all the retailers and work with them. So we get our books to them the best way possible, and we can help them sell our books. And because ultimately the partnership is not your content, it was is your partnership with the readers is through content, but as a business your partnership is with retailers always,
Certainly.
and that has to be the primary relationship because whereas readers will love what you do and they know where to pick it up, you have to be able to work with the retailers to stock and sell and have confidence in your product. And as you know, I mean, monthly comics is not an industry you make a lot of money in. That really comes with the bookend market later, but you want the retail side of things. You want the monthly retail to work really, really well, and you want it to be a good product that arrives in good shape and in a format and in a way that the retailers can market and sell themselves. And you want their lives to be easy, and you want there are often, understandably, I think, nervous. Um,
Literally ever since COVID, I completely agree, and I sympathize with my retailer friends who are in the
yeah.
business and stuff, and have had them on Word Balloon to talk about obviously the diamond situation, what happened with the big two, and really, I guess a lot of the companies during COVID and pencils down, as it became to be known, when
Yeah.
again, if the stores aren't getting the books, then the publishers are kind of left with, well, we can't keep making it if the public can't get it. What do
Hmm.
we do? And I know all these various miniseries were canceled and things mid-story and never picked up again and things, which is horrible. And horrible for the creators and obviously for the people that were reading them. I had a couple stories that were like, nope, not finishing it. And it's like, all right, well, it is what it is. Thankfully, that was rectified. And yeah, I'm glad to hear that again with the absence of Diamond now that a lot of these other companies have stepped up, and you got Penguin Random House and certainly Lunar. I have good friends at Lunar. They're I was going to say Caroline, Mrs. Merkler, who right now her first name is escaping me, who's in charge of Lunar.
Okay,
Uh,
no, I can't remember either. I'm sorry.
oh no, she's a sweet. Shame on me for not remembering her first name. Wonderful woman and really like smart as hell. Really great business person. But well, that's great to hear, man. And like, do you ever talk to retailers one on one, or you ever get it
We
that?
we did we did certainly when we were gearing up to launch. We did a lot of retailer Zooms in groups or in a fews. And whenever Danny thinks that's a good thing to do, we'll do it. That's Danny's area to so we're all at her disposal as needed because that's her area of expertise, her and Mike. If we have done it, we're happy to do it again.
That's
It's
cool. No. By the way, Christina Merkler. I'm so glad my
ah
brain
yes,
finally kicked in.
sorry,
Shame on
yes.
no. Shame on me, man. I'm the one who
I
brought
didn't
her
know her
up, and
surname actually. Jeff only refers to her as Christina, so yeah.
no, I've known her and her former husband Cameron. No, I mean literally, they were one of the first sponsors of Word Balloon
Oh,
20
cool.
years ago and everything.
Wow.
Absolutely, man.
It's been 20
So
years, John.
this is my 20th year, Bry. I know.
Wow.
What the hell? I know.
Wow, I suppose when I was thinking of it, it's 20 years since Ultimate. So yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Well,
Shit.
you and I only started talking, a couple of years
I
ago.
know, but you and Bendis were doing stuff back then. So I was like
So
thinking, yeah, it's 20. Fuck.
I hear you, man. Fucking neat, and truly Jeff as well. Jeff is one of my early guys, and Mark as well. No, yeah. May 10th will be my 20th anniversary. I
Wow.
can't
Well,
believe it.
congratulations.
Thank you very much, man. No, there's a handful of us that started really when podcasting happened. Do you listen to other podcasts? I mean,
Yeah, I
yeah,
do. I
please
actually
tell me. Yeah, and again, whether they're comics or non-comics, I'm
no,
always
no, no.
fascinated what you're listening
I
to.
mean, last week I binged the entirety of David Tennant's podcasts. I just love those. Because they just launched. My wife was listening to the current one, season three, and they'd done the other ones in COVID, and I discovered them through her, and I was drawing. When you're drawing away in the backgrounds, so I just tend to listen to audiobooks when I'm doing all the boring stuff, like the
I'm
actual
hip.
work.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
But when I'm doing layouts and breakdowns, I can only listen to music because I need to be completely immersed internally in doing that. But yeah, podcasts, anything from physics to history, I love history podcasts. So The Rest is History is a good one. So it's a British one, which is very, very good. The Rest is History, it's called, and it's part of this group that the footballer Gary Lineker owns. Um, so his company does The Rest is Politics. I think they did the football one first, and The Rest is Politics, which has an American spin-off now with Scaramucci does with his anti-Trump tirades, and uh,
Yeah.
and over here it's Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart. Rory Stewart was a former Conservative minister and who loathed Boris Johnson and resigned. And Alistair Campbell, who was Tony Blair's press secretary for the whole of that.
Wow.
And there's nothing those two don't know about politics the world over. But they get some incredible guests on. Who did they have on the other week including American politicians too. They had Bill Clinton on a few weeks ago actually.
Oh,
So
wow. Cool.
but so yeah, I listen to that sort of stuff. I rarely listen to comic podcasts because that's what I do for a living. But I do if somebody says, "Oh, you should listen to this," I drop in and like when you've got somebody on, I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, I'll go and listen to him because that'll be interesting." But Katie Sackhoff, I've been listening to her one.
Love that show.
Um,
Love that show.
the guy, the Lex Luthor guy, God, he's gone out my head.
Oh yeah, but Michael
Rosenbaum, yeah, yeah.
Rosenblum. Yeah.
I like his one too. He's had
Yeah.
some great guests on.
Oh yeah.
Um, but the the ones I really like, I suppose, are the ones that know ask just enough to let the guests talk. Rick Beato is another one. I listened to his one. He had a terrific interview with Hans Zimmer on this week. Um, and it was like an hour and 40 minutes long. And Zimmer talked about stuff. He went through the usual greatest hits of stories he tells and all the other ones, but there was so much more insight into some of those stories and questions that got much more into the depth of stuff because Rick's a musician and he knows all the stuff, he knows all the gear. So I like stuff like that where you can get into the weeds on subjects you're interested in.
Amen. I no, Beato's amazing. I found him last year and have just been going through his whole catalog. And yeah,
Yeah.
and again, we're around the same age and everything,
Yeah.
and Beato too. And so
Yeah.
even more so
Yeah.
that he really understands our generation's music, and no, I adore it. Did the Yacht Rock documentary make it to the UK?
It might have, I haven't seen it.
Okay. Well, Rick had great thoughts on that, and I completely
Okay.
agreed with him. As someone also who was programming that music when it was happening, and I really appreciated that documentary. But as it will happen with some people that are a couple generations beyond the subject they're covering, they kind of get it wrong. And they're like, "Oh, it was MTV that killed Yacht Rock." And it's like, no, Yacht Rock continued like another 15 years after the, start of MTV. I can tell you because I was programming that music into the 90s. And yeah, it's like, no, no, not true. And in fact, the MTV people created VH1 as a platform because certainly the Ramones going into a Christopher Cross song doesn't make a lot of sense. So no, those those Christopher Cross and Steely Dan are not going to follow
Huh.
a Ramones
I forgot
video.
you were doing the music stuff. I mean, music's the other great passion for me. So I just, I just, there was always the point at which I could flip to, if I didn't have to earn a living, I think I could easily flip to just doing music all day. I mean, I
I
love
love
my job. I love what I'm doing now, probably more than ever have. Um, but there's always that other side. Is think like I could just take like a month off and write some more music. I'd just do that in a heartbeat.
See, and I, as a broadcaster, what I always appreciated about the UK is beyond the various broadcast outlets there were well before the internet. I love that like hospitals would have like their own in-house DJ.
They did, yeah, of course they did.
That
Some of the big DJs started on the hospitals and the local. It wasn't just local radios, but those little hospital radios. They were terrific.
I'm telling you, man. No, again, as someone that was scratching for jobs as I did for many years and stuff, it's like, oh God, how come we don't follow the UK model? That would have been amazing. Although, thank God for the internet. So
Well, I suppose, but that's how it's happened now, is it? It's all shifted over. So now you can just, you could, I would, actually, one of my big unsung ideas is this thing for to do. I want to do a podcast, but I don't have the time to get it organized. I know exactly what it'll be about and how to approach it. I just have not got the time to do it because God knows, with the comics and the stuff that I want to do on top of what I'm doing with Redcoat, and when I don't, and the family life, and when I'm not doing that, I want to be writing music. So it's just taking on something else. It's like, oh yeah, that was a great idea, but I haven't got a minute in a week.
I get it, man. No, truly, some of my friends are like, "Hey, can we do this kind of podcast?" I'm like, "I am very busy with what I'm doing. I
Yeah.
can't go beyond it." I'll be honest. Although, as long as you guys are willing to come on Word Balloon, I will say, "Hey, why didn't you call me for the Ghost Machine podcast, guys? Come on, I've known you guys for a long time. I would have been happy to be that guy." But no, 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 it's all good. I truly, and again, Hitch, as long as you're willing to come back, that's great, and we could do new things. So
Always.
do we have time? Because obviously I really want to get into
Yeah, if you
last
want to
week's.
go into the Superman stuff, we've got
Excellent.
time. Yeah.
All right, for the audio audience, you'll have to wait for the next episode to catch what we're about to talk about. It's because again, I don't want to spoil. The book is still 2 days away from being released, but because of the good graces of DC, they let me see volume 2. And is this going to be three? All right, so let's here. We will officially begin now.
Okay. Can I just
Our
say, for the audio audience alone, I have just poured myself another glass of wine.
Excellent. So that means, all right, Bryan is settling in for a nice long conversation. So, audio audience, come back for episode 2 of this great conversation with Bryan Hitch. And now I will welcome Bryan back for the audio audience with part two of our conversation. We just, if you haven't heard part one, great stuff about Ghost Machine, Redcoat, a lot of other stuff. We'll get into some, if time allows, some more fun stuff because Brian and I are beyond talking about comics and things. We always like talking about what we're listening to, what we're
Yeah.
watching. So we'll get to that. But man, great stuff. You, Mark Waid, Kevin Nolan, the whole company involved with Superman: The Last Days of Lex Luthor. I just read issue two. Is it going to be three issues, Brian? How many?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is. Kevin literally just turned in the last page on Friday last week. Um, so yeah, it's done. I mean, I think David Barron's on holiday, and when he gets back, I think this week he's going to color it. Lettering's done. So yeah, it is finally after 4 years.
Wow, is it really? Was the first issue
Yeah,
four
because
years ago?
I did issue. So I mean, I've been with Ghost Machine full time since December 23. And so I finished penciling Superman, third issue of the Superman book, in autumn of 23.
Wow.
Um, so I think Kevin had only done a few pages of issue two by that point. I mean, I've said before, but DC put the first issue out long before the series was ready to be released. So it looks like, but it's been one of those projects that was not, I don't know if cursed is the wrong word, but it was when Mark pitched that thing actually a long time before, but Dan Didio wasn't keen on it, and when Dan
Oh
left,
wow.
Jim was. So Jim was like, "Why don't you guys do that?" So we jumped at it because I loved it when Mark pitched it to me. Um, Even though Dan didn't go for it, I thought it was terrific. So I was really glad that we got to do it. But then Mark wrote the first issue, but then he was still what was he? Was it humanoids then, wasn't he?
Oh yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He was the
And
editor in chief of Humanoids.
yeah, and
Yes.
he was writing something else too. So and what always happened with this with Mark on the writing side was that when he came back into DC post Humanoids, both as editor of Humanoids because he was freelancing, and then full time freelancing for DC, projects that he was working on took precedence because they were then scheduled. And became bigger. Like I think a miniseries became a regular series, and Mark was then suddenly writing two books a month and a couple of miniseries. So I was a bit on the back burner, and so then I couldn't. I did issue one, and then I went and did Venom for 17 issues, and then Ultimate Invasion. I think I did issue two whilst I was doing Venom, piecemeal, and then I got the script for issue three about the time I'd finished that. So then I started it when I did Ultimate Invasion. Then I finished it after Ultimate Invasion. So there was kind of these large gaps between getting issues, which helped Kevin because Kevin, by his own admission, is not the fastest of performers. Um, but it is what it is. And when that hardcover's sitting on my shelf, um, I'm very proud to be sandwiched between these two guys. If I see this as my last work for hire book project because I don't imagine any unless we seriously fuck up Ghost Machine, and I can't imagine that's going to happen.
God forbid.
Ghost Machine is the rest of my career. Um,
Wow. Yeah.
so
Interesting. Wow. All
and I
right. Well,
don't
that's
plan
it.
and I don't plan to retire. So it gives you,
No, I'm hip. I get it. That's really interesting. Well, there you go. Well, that's certainly because I was wondering if some of the other things might be big two
no, no, no,
projects.
no, no. The
All
other things
creator
I'm
owned.
doing, no, they're all Ghost Machine books. There'll be
Fantastic.
new
Excellent.
books, new IPs, new things. Um,
Well,
so uh, so for Superman is why I got into comics in the first place. Superman is why I wanted to draw comics in the first place. And Superman is a character I somehow have never ever had a run at. I've had close opportunities. I got offered opportunities to write, to draw, to write and draw at times, and it never ever worked out for one reason or another. And so the fact that this ended up being my last work for hire thing, and it was a Superman project, and with working with Kevin, whose work has been influential on me since he did Grimwood's Daughter. And I was what 17 and I think 16, 15. I was actually 15 when he did that. Um, Steve Parkhouse showed it to me because Steve was doing I don't think it was ever printed, but he was doing this thing called The Blood of the Beast with Jan Stranod. Um, and I don't think it was ever published. It was Fantagraphics, wasn't it? Um, and he showed me this Dalgoda stuff, which was lovely. But it was this that guy Ken Fujitaka, I think I want to say. I don't. But he was doing this stuff in a sort of a semi-Mebius style, but in the back with the Grimwood's daughter things, and I was reading the Dalgoda stuff, and I'd only ever read DC's up to that point, so seeing something new, and then I just turned to Kevin's, I saw the Grimwood daughter stuff. I was like, fuck, that's good. I mean, actually, on my wall here, you can't see it, but I've got a series of Kevin's preliminary drawings for Grimwood's daughter, several pages of them along the wall behind the computer there. Um, so, because it has one of those like little emotional buttons for me, seeing that stuff where you think, oh, my influences are this, and now they pivot slightly. It's like that and Akira, and there's always like these points of divergence where you think this is what comics are, and then suddenly somebody shows you a different way, and your horizons expand a little bit. So yeah, having working with Kevin, who's always just been a joy as a person, and having him in that, and working with Mark on this because Mark and I are like the biggest Superman fans in the world between us. So if I couldn't write a Superman book myself, the only other person I would want to do it with was Mark. And the fact that we got to do this and it's my last work for hire project is, I think, a real kind of fitting closure to a section of my career.
I understand it. Go ahead.
No, I
You
was
go
going to say,
ahead.
I'm not, you never say never on stuff, but I can't imagine wanting to go back to other people's characters. Do you know what I mean? What I mean?
I
Yeah.
do. No, I no, and I totally understand with Superman as well. Did you guys work together before, you and Wade?
Yeah, we had a very short. So after Authority, I was offered Justice League, and Grant Morrison had just left, and Mark had just been assigned to it, and we did this thing called Heaven's Ladder, which is a tabloid size thing. And we're supposed to do the regular series, but Dan Rasper, the editor at the time, fucked the schedules up so colossally that by the time I started the regular issue, and I wasn't late in terms of my production because I'd been doing Authority. I was doing them 3 weeks an issue. I was relentless on that book. And then I went on to the Heaven's Ladder book and I penciled it a page a day. But we were 5 months late when we finished it because the schedules had been completely buggered internally. And so there were fill-in issues required on the issue on literally my second issue of the regular book, and the
Wow.
whole thing was so fucked that I just completely lost the will to be involved, which is a shame because Mark and I clearly loved each other in personally, but that was such an abortive, unpleasant situation editorially that it just didn't work out. So alas, we didn't ever get to work together again until that came up. And I don't even know how we got in touch. I mean, I think he and I have kept in touch sporadically over the years, an occasional email, how you doing, this, that, and the other. And I think the Superman thing came up because I was um, coming to the end of Batman's grave. And I was like, do you want to do something? And he's like, I'm with, humanoids. Though I did have this idea, and he sent me like the paragraph. And I was like, that's fantastic. Let's do that. But Dan didn't want to go for it. And then I say Jim did. So, um, but yeah. So I was like 29 back then when Mark and I first tried to work together, and he went off to CrossGen.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
of
And I
course.
went off to the
Yes.
Ultimates.
Right. Wow, man. Oh, Jim, which Jim?
Jim Lee.
Oh, Jim Lee, of course. Shame
Yeah.
on me, man. I'm thinking like, everybody but Jim Lee, like an idiot. So no, I'm glad that. Well,
Oh,
I'm glad
yeah,
Jim.
Jim.
I'm glad Jim likes the idea because this is a great story, man. And truly, it is such a great story, both from just a well, you're both like you said earlier, you're storytellers. I mean, it's the areas. If folks, if you're listening and you have not picked up the first issue of Last Days of Luthor, I'm sure if DC, DC is probably re-putting it out along with the second issue because maybe there has been such a gap between the issues that would be my suspicion.
Hmm.
If not, I imagine it's on the DC Universe app.
Actually,
So we'll get
I think there's some still in stores. I saw some in Forbidden Planet the other week. So
okay. Well, that's good. Honestly, my God, where it goes in issue two is just great because Luthor is dying. Superman might be the only person to help him. Luthor is certainly not happy about having Superman involved. But you go through this wonderful tour of the DC universe and the various places that Superman is desperate to find a cure. Not only that, but the fantastic conversations
yeah.
between him and Lois and well Lois and Jimmy in issue two, and also this fantastic scene with Wonder Woman in Paradise Island,
Oh yes,
where
I forgot
oh
about
my
that one.
God, yeah, and
Yeah.
again, Brian, it is these emotions that you are putting behind Mark's words when they are having these conversations
Yeah,
that are
but
just as
that's the story. The big action is in the personal interchanges. Now, how you show that isn't about yeah, there is an occasional bit of punching, and I know the action is really issue three, but still drama. Don't mistake action for drama because Jeff and I talk about this where action is only worth something if it's the culmination of an emotional moment because those two things have to coincide, otherwise it's empty, it's just noise. And Mark, really, the power of this story was in the personal dramas. So it I didn't see it as a challenge to be able to depict that stuff and make it visually interesting because it is visually interesting because this and I found Luthor, actually, this version of Luthor anyway, really great fun to draw because he is so expressive. He's all the things physically and emotionally Superman isn't. So it's lovely on the page to have Superman looking earnest and Luthor looking like fuck you. Um, so getting all of those things in his yeah, I adored that because there was such a life and a complete disdain for Superman in Luthor's expressions and the personality and the much that he loathed having Superman help him, but he has to have Superman help him. And then, yeah, it's just all those places we went to in issue two, Atlantis, Paradise Island. Oh, the Atlantis scenes, love those, love
believe me,
those.
man, I intend every bit to talk about the Atlantis scene because Jesus, man, I love that Silver Age Lori Lemaris first story, and
Yeah,
you guys recover, and also just that's a real. We were talking about it in part one. Great emotional moments between Simon and Albert Einstein in Redcoat. Lori and Superman. It's just
yeah,
like
that's a
these
lovely
old
scene.
lovers that,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh my God! And truly, man, no, I didn't cry, but it certainly did touch me, and it's like. Oh yeah, man. I mean, this is this
yeah.
the love that could not
No,
happen because of who they were. And
I've
then
always
there's
found I've always found a real disdain for people who say, "Oh, it's talking heads. I don't like drawing talking heads," and it's like you're missing the point. That's if the writing is good, that's where it is. That's where the action happens. It's how people relate, how you shoot that action. It's like saying, "Oh, I don't like good actors." Honestly, if you say I don't like talking heads, you don't like 90%, 99% of the things you're actually watching, because really all of it is personal drama. Otherwise, the story's worthless.
I'm with
So,
you, man. So with you. And um really, and again, we're getting Luther's point of view of, hey, what the hell, man? I mean, I thought you were all about Lois. What's with this Lori chick? And
yeah,
I always forget the king's name that Lori married.
Ronal. Yeah.
Rono?
Is it Ronal? Yeah, I think
We
it's
will for the
Ronal.
for the purposes of this conversation, we'll say Ronald. But it's no, it's great. And it's like, no, man, they still have this bond that is separate from Superman and Lois. And it's like, yeah, again, Ronald's cool enough to know, yeah, they were in love, but it didn't work out. And you play it all out in your images, man. And it's this wonderful montage, at least again from a mental standpoint, comparing it to film, of these moments of their their whole history. I mean, not only just them loving each other, but really just the whole relationship and the sadness of that original story and everything too,
Yeah,
that they
well,
couldn't be together.
to be fair to Mark, I was just working off what was in the script because it was all there. I wasn't adding any. I mean, my visuals had to match the quality, the depth, the emotion, the power of the story that Mark had written. And honestly, when you get material that good, it's easy, you know. And most of the
Well,
time, you're just trying to keep out the way of it and just support the words, not overly. It's actually Kevin and I were talking about this because Kevin was um, talking about a page from issue 3 that he'd inked, and I'm 18 months distant from some of this stuff. I'm longer from issue 2 and 1. So I don't always remember the thought processes, but there was this page which should have been or could have been done in a very bombastic way visually. And I didn't. I chose actually a very quiet way of doing it, mostly because of the words Mark had written. I thought the powers in the words and what this needed was almost visually a moment of silence. It's like if this is in a movie, the music would have stopped and you'd have just had a breath, right? Even though it's the powerful end moment of a dramatic visual action scene. And Kevin emailed me today to say that, I, I can't believe you did it that way because that's not the way anybody else would have done it. And I don't remember doing it for any other reason that just I could feel the breath in the script. And as much as I might think, and I remember thinking, oh, it's going to be this big shot and it's going to do this and it's going to do that. But actually, what it turned out to be was just probably the quickest panel I'd ever drawn in the issues. And it's quiet, it's very unassuming, but it works to support the words Mark wrote. On its own, it doesn't look anything. With the words, it's perfect, almost as a moment. And that's what you have to try and do as a visual storyteller, because if you're not, you're grandstanding. And there are times you can grandstand, and you should grandstand because you need a bit of noise and
sure.
a bit of visual kind of flair. But sometimes you just have to let the words speak and just give them just enough of bit of background music. You don't want at the quiet moment, the perfect quiet moment of drama where the characters exhale their emotion. You don't want this bombastic symphony orchestra going off with like the equivalent of the opening of Star Wars. You just need that quiet exhalation, a slight, just a held note on a string, on a high string. That's the moment you're trying to find. You're trying to find that quality. And if you're not supporting the words, you're not supporting the dialogue or the intention of the script, then I think you're doing it wrong. So, anywho,
I I understand, man, and it really a quiet moment in the Lori Lemaris scene where they're just touching heads, and he's
yeah,
just
and
like,
again,
and that mental word balloon of I need this. I know what I'm asking is a lot,
yeah,
but it's
but that's
me, and
again,
I
that's
need this.
Mark. That is Mark, and Mark. The dialogue is all there. Having that dialogue to work with is everything. You don't need stage directions. You need the dialogue because that's how you kind of direct your actors. Because
Yeah,
you know where the emotion is and you know where the power is and you know where the shot is. It doesn't mean haven't added or taken away panels, or in fact in issue 3 multiple pages I've added to the issue. But it's all in service of what Mark's written because I want to make sure that it's hitting the way it's supposed to hit. And we go back and forth on some stuff like that. In fact, there's a central section in issue 3. It's essentially it's a conversation between Superman and Luthor. It's all it is. And I think it's one of the most, like issue 7 of Redcoat, it's one of the most powerful things I've done because of what I didn't do. I just supported the dialogue, and it's the right expression or right angle just to support a word maybe in the dialogue. So if when you read it, the word you remember is a particular kind of phrase or end of the sentence. And if I've done the drawing right, it empowers that dialogue. So that's what I think about when I'm reading the script and then trying to turn that into drawings. It's not about what's the best drawing you can do, what's the best angle you can take. It's how you best support that dialogue.
Well, though, you do have moments of Flash in issue
Oh,
two.
sure.
In Atlantis, we've got the big giant sea monster
Legion
that
of
they
Superheroes.
and I was going to say, yes, the Legion. Let's talk about the Legion because my God, no, Brian, that's great. Brian, are you still drawing on paper or are you
Yeah,
doing it
yeah,
on?
absolutely.
Okay, because I would imagine that's going to be 20,000 at least, if not more, a page of original art. Should
I
you ever
guess
want to part with it?
don't say that because then Kevin will let me have it. We haven't
All right.
split it up. We're just saying to Kevin like today, I was saying, we have to figure out a way of splitting
Yeah.
these three issues up because there's pages we both want. I mean, there's
Oh, I'm
ways
sure.
it traditionally should be done, and there's ways you can do it. Um, so it's generally a 60-40 split, but there's pages I know Kevin really favors, and there's pages I really favor. So I think I might have to fly to Kentucky and just sit there with him and go, "No, I'm having that. Get off." Legion, no, nobody will want that. The Legion, no, don't listen to that podcast shit. Nobody will want to buy that.
So many double page spreads of just this, and especially when they go to the future,
Yeah,
looking again for this cure. And oh, I'll talk to Brainiac. Yeah, fine. Here's the whole Legion, and here's the whole Legion of various action moments. And oh God, just so great. And again, man, I always tell Jeff Johns there were two doors in the '70s. There was the X-Men door and the Legion of Superhero door. I went through the Legion door, and I know
Legion. Yeah,
dick
yeah,
about the X-Men, but when it comes to the Legion, it's like no, 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 man. I know pretty much all 300 members and can tell you a lot about them all, and I
yeah.
adore what you did with the Legion. It is just beautiful.
Thank you. Well, I mean, the interesting thing about that, and this is I'll credit Mark with this one again, was I'd started drawing it, and then I hadn't undrawn that double page spread you're talking about. Um, but Mark had said, actually, on reflection, let's make this an adult Legion of Superheroes. So they're the same age as Superman.
Yes,
Because he said, I just think it's better than him having it as an adult hanging around with teenagers. It
sure,
just Superboy and the Legion, Superman and the older Legion, because he ages with them. It makes a lot of visual sense.
100%.
So that gave me a little opportunity to kind of tweak the costumes based on what I remember as the classics and just developing them a little further, like giving Ultra Boy the beard and stuff like that. And I just thought I was drawing that, and I was thinking. I even said to Max, I could do this. This could be a series. We could do this. You know,
Dude, back in the day when the Legion stories would be Superman going and visiting them as adults.
yeah,
I mean, that's the great thing. This is very modern. I don't want listen again. We're two guys that are certainly beyond our 20s. But that said, at the same time, I think you both achieve a very modern, current story with these echoes of the stuff we grew up on.
well, yeah, like
And
Mark was talking about like the Candor stuff in issue one. Was that issue one?
yes,
So, when Mark just said, they go to Candor. And so I just started thinking, how would you really, it calls the Bottle City, and there are all these kind of vertical bottles in the classic comics, but cities are hugely horizontal. They're not vertical. So then I started thinking, well, actually it just means bottle just means it's enclosed. So we just do this thing that like when you go to a museum and you see a remake of Rome that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. Um, so that just little tweaks like that were huge fun for me because I got to play with all the mythology of the fortress of Candor, of the Legion, of Luthor. Um, do I spoil issue three and say who's in issue three?
well, there's a final page, and I wouldn't go beyond that of issue two.
Ah, yes, of course, yes. So
So
revealed
if
at
that's
the
who
end
you're
of issue
talking
two,
about,
yeah, yeah,
Brainiac, of course.
of course, Brainiac.
Well, and again, much like what we've seen in these conversations in the first two issues between Lex and Cal, and Clark, which I mean, and I'll talk about that in a second, but I can only imagine what's coming because that is not only the Brainiac Superman dynamic, but the Luthor Brainiac
Yes.
dynamic, and again, it reminds me of what Elliot Maggin wrote in Last Son of Krypton because we had some very personal moments between Lex and Superman in that as well. And in fact, in Atlantis, Lex
Hmm.
saves Superman, and there's a
Yes.
moment that he saves him and everything, and it's again they're having this conversation. Your Smallville flashback and how you retell the
Oh yeah,
accident
love
that
those.
happened. Well,
Absolutely
and
love those.
again, it's a modern spin. It's not just the. And I listen. As a 10-year-old, when I read the reprint of Superboy blowing out the chemical fumes and Luthor's
Mm.
hair's falling off, it's like, all right, that's how it happened. And then I remember in the Smallville TV series that it was the radiation that made Lex lose his hair from the meteors. And everything.
I
Okay,
can't
fine,
remember
whatever.
which. I
I
can't
think it
remember
was
which.
that.
I can't remember which issue it is that. Is it issue two where we show what Luthor was doing? That
It is issue
it is
two.
issue
That
two.
yeah, he's trying to open wormholes and get to extra other worlds and
Yeah, it's
extraterrestrials. And
Krypton.
why? And why is he doing it? Because he feels alienated
Yeah.
on Earth. I'm the only person that
And the
understands me.
irony is that the portal he opens is to Krypton. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, and the person that could have changed it, there's a beautiful scene at the beginning of issue two. Or is that the end of issue three? Or is that the end of issue two? I actually can't remember now. Um, uh, is it?
Where
I'd have to,
he reveals himself as Clark
yes.
to Lex.
And
Yeah,
Luther
that's
just
it too.
laughs at him like it's like you just like I've had a great life, you asshole. Yeah, I know. I love that. Yeah. There's
Yes.
little moments like that, and other shots I got to do where Superman flies down to the alleyway and changes back into being Clark just before he goes into the planet building for a scene. And it's just like these are all the classic moments of Superman. I actually got to do all of that cool stuff, you know. I know. I mean, all of that thing is, I just think that, in a different life, Mark and I would have turned this into an epic run on the series, and the Smallville stuff would have been part of it. So we'd have got to play with the Superboy and Luthor relationship. And you can see that we could have done that over like a 5-year thing or a 3-year thing. But
Sure.
the fact that we got to do this and encompass so much of the legend of Superman as well as the relationship, because it really is, and it shows the genuine beginning and genuine end. I haven't read issue three yet of that relationship, and I think it's lovely when the way it ends is for Superman, for the world, for Lex. I think it's a beautiful ending. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, I look forward to reading it. Where you're at. I mean, truly, I didn't. I for some reason I thought it was only 2 volumes. So
Yeah,
that turn at the end,
and issue
when it,
three, I think, is I have 50 or something pages. So
wow.
I added an extra few pages to it, more than DC. We're really happy with.
Because yeah, this was like 40 pages, 45 pages, 44.
44, I think, 46 pages. I think it's not 48, but I think I added a few to issue three because it needed a couple of extra breaths here and there. Sometimes you just need a moment. Though I didn't ask DC because they said no, I just drew them. Um,
Good, good. And also this is what's great about I always wondered because I remember for years people wanted uh DC Universe characters in Vertigo. And it
yeah,
was so rare that it would
yeah,
happen. I know talking to Matt Wagner, he would throw in Golden Age heroes in his Madame
mm,
Xanadu stuff, and I'm like, how'd you get him to agree to that? He's like, I just did it. No, but I didn't tell anybody. It just the page just showed up, and it's like, all right, well, I guess we're running it and everything. And I'm glad that, and I'm much like you with what you're telling me now about issue three of the Luthor story, because yeah, there is great opportunity. Back to Wonder Woman when Wonder Woman has the golden lasso around Lex, and
oh
Lex has
yeah,
to reveal more about himself than he wants to.
yeah,
And
nice
Wonder
scene.
Woman's holding onto the lasso as well. And it's like, well, you're full of shit. That's not who Superman is. And she's like, I'm not lying. I'm holding the lasso.
Yeah, I've
I'm
forgotten
not
about
lying.
that, but yeah,
Yeah, those are beautiful moments. And again, you are delivering what Mark has written.
yeah,
You are
that's the
delivering those
job.
emotions. I'm hip. I get it, man. No, and again, respect that you are taking that attitude and that you are getting to be so invested in these stories and have
Well,
that feeling.
yeah. Yeah, but it's because I mean, I read it, I'm moved by it, I love it, and I want to get across the emotion I'm feeling from having read it. And that's the job, is you shoot the shit out of it, but you've got to let the actors speak. You've got to always, because the heart of the drama is the people, and um, there's that, and I use this a lot. There's you've probably heard of it, the Kuleshov effect. Okay, so
Tell me.
there's this thing. So in cinema, it's like this old Russian filmmaker back in the dawn of cinema, and he maintained that unlike theatre, cinema based on photography is all subjective. It's based on um, the idea that you can that the person watching, depending on what you surround the moment with, will feel emotion that isn't expressed by the actor. Ian McKellen often talks about the fact that on film you have to emote less than you do in cinema because motions are huge on the cinema screen. So physical motions, facial expressions. Anthony Hopkins doesn't blink. Michael Caine always said if you want to, when you're on camera you don't blink, and you watch him, he never blinks on camera at all, on film. So there's this, but this all offshoots of the same thing. The Kuleshov said you could put the same single picture, same single image, or close up of an actor in a scene that requires you to feel horror, to feel joy, to feel love, to feel terror, anything of that. And it'll be the same expression, but depending on what you surround that close up with, will depend on what you think the actor is emoting. And it's actually the same absolutely blank expression. I use this in the Ultimates a lot because I realized that the less I did with the expressions, the close-ups, the more people thought they were expressive. And this is way back when that was coming out. And it's the first time I got to know Joss Whedon, and we were having dinner, and he was talking about how these expressive phases. And I said, it's actually the less I do with the big close-ups, the more people seem to think they're expressive. He said, yeah, that's Cinema 101. It's called the Kuleshov effect. And I went and researched it, and I sometimes use it to great effect because I sometimes think less is more sometimes rather than as much as I love the big Neil Adams. Adams made it work for Adams. I can't do that. Garcia Lopez, again, great physical acting on the Stan Drake model of Juliet Jones and all. It's wonderful, wonderful stuff. I can't do that well. It looks awkward when I do it. But if I get it just enough with the right kind of semi-neutrality, with the right kind of shot, with the right writing, it works. But it doesn't if I try to do too much.
Have you ever talked to Kevin McGuire about how he handles facial
No.
emotions and that? Because again, there's another artist that I think really
Hmm.
conveys, along with Garcia Lopez and Neil and the rest. But yeah, that's and also that it's funny as you describe that theory. I believe I remember Hitchcock going through that as well in one of his explanations of cutting back and forth between shots and everything, and how you can
Yeah,
change.
yeah. And Kubrick used to do it as well. Kubrick used to do multiple takes to exhaust his actors to the point where they were banal, and as far as they were concerned, and under-delivering on the performance. Actually, Nicholas Meyer talked about talked about this, and yeah,
With Shatner. Yeah,
Shatner. Yeah.
For Star Trek 2, that he would basically exhaust
Yeah, that
Shatner
that
to
scene where Khan had, and where it's like here it comes when they're about to lower the shields and shoot the photons, and they did like 50 takes of this. The point where Shatner was like, "Here it comes,
yeah.
here it comes," and all this the big Shatner stuff. Khan, here it comes, you know, uh, and to the point where Shatner was so exhausted at the end of the day, he just said, "Here it comes." And that was the take. That was the one that's in the film because it's a man on the end of he's exhausted, he's beaten. It's the last gasp, and that's what you want to get. So sometimes I guess it works, doesn't it? It's the less is more thing.
Absolutely. I know Jack Lemmon said that about Billy Wilder, and that he was overacting and funny. He's like, "Well, if I'm giving you less, I'm doing nothing." And Billy Wilder's like, "Exactly, please. That's what that's what
Do
we
nothing.
want."
Please do nothing. Yeah.
That's excellent, man. Again, I love this story. I love where it ended. It really makes me anticipate what could possibly be coming in the third issue. And again, we got and sorry, kids, I should have warned you at the beginning of the video. I certainly will in the audio that don't listen to this until after you've read it. But yeah, Brainiac. I can only imagine the conversations between the three of them that are to come in this final chapter. But man, you're going out on a really strong note, Bry. If this is the last one of your DC stories,
Thank you.
it's
Yeah,
epic.
it's not that I wouldn't have more DC stories in me. It's just that I think I'll be dead by the time I get a chance to do
Well,
them.
you got. Hey, man,
I'll be in
listen.
my
Every
90s.
hey, hey, listen, Kubert. Kubert
I know, God.
and Eisner were going till the end,
Yeah.
man. And
Uh,
I think that's wonderful. And I so and again, we want a couple more decades at least of Bryan Hitch work. So
I'm
you know,
not going anywhere, and I feel like I'm just hitting my like a whole new creative stride here. So we joke that internally that this is like Cocoon when they all go in the swimming pool and there's I think it's like rejuvenated again. This is what Ghost Machine is like, the Cocoon swimming pool. It's
that's
like
fantastic.
all us old fuckers are suddenly really old fuckers now. Yeah.
There you go. That's excellent, man. Oh my God, I love both of those movies actually. That's hilarious. Do you have time to BS about some TV and film and
Yeah, go
stuff?
on. Everybody else has gone to bed in now, so we
All
might
right.
as well.
Did you have I'll be honest, I leading up to the Oscars, I saw nothing. And in the last like week or so, I saw Conclave and it blew me away. I thought it was excellent. I don't know if you
Read the
saw that.
book. Well, listened to the book a few years ago.
Interesting. Okay.
Um, so I do know the story, but I haven't watched the film yet. But it's definitely on my download list there. So
Have you watched any of the Oscar nominees? Have you seen any of the Oscar
I don't
nominated
think
films?
I have. I'm woefully behind in my movie watching. Um, and I'm just starting to catch up on a lot of TV stuff. I think I've been working a lot. And then post dinner, I just sit on the sofa with Mrs. H, and she may be watching something I might pay a bit of attention to, but I drift off or I drift into research mode. I sit on and start Googling this, that, and the other to find information for upcoming issues and create my reference files and whatnot. Or I just listen to music and relax. And so I what have I watched recently? Silo season 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Um,
I got one to ask about, and that's the Section 31 Star Trek movie. Did you see it?
I got 10 minutes in and thought it was shite.
Yeah. Yeah.
I shouldn't really say that just
Well,
in case anybody's watching, because you never know. I did think it was bad. And I love Discovery on the whole. Uh, you know, in a point score, it had its ups and its downs, but
okay.
generally I came out feeling good about it. Um, and I love Strange New Worlds because to me it's just fun. And it's gorgeous to look at. Um,
Well,
and
it's
I'll
gorgeous
certainly
to look at.
and I'll certainly watch the Starfleet Academy thing.
Oh,
Just
so
it,
yeah, Bright. I mean, seriously, man. I've been watching Star Trek since
what?
I
Yeah,
was
well, I
five
mean, of
years
course,
old.
I'm going to watch. I'm going to watch all of it, whatever it
Exactly,
is.
man. I'm with you on that. But yeah, you saved yourself 80 minutes of pain if all you saw was the first 10 minutes
Yeah,
of Section 31.
it just didn't look or feel like. Do you know? I mean, I persevered through the first 2 seasons of Picard because um, I was hoping to get to what we got in season 3 ultimately. And it was lovely to see when Q reappeared, and so on, and Riker showed up, and you think, because actually the best episode of season 2,
Two.
1, was the Riker episode. It was just
Yes.
gorgeous. It was filled with so much emotion that
Yes.
was missing from everything else.
Yes.
And so when you got to season 3, just every episode was an absolute corker, both with old and new characters. But it worked because of those relationships they built up. And honestly, I never loved the Enterprise D particularly, but when it came out of that hangar, God, I was in tears.
I hear you, man.
I was just, and when Beverly shot the shit out of the Borg cube, my God, it's just like, I would another season of this, please. You know,
I'm with you. I got to see face to face Gates McFadden and Frakes. I've met a couple times now. And Gates, it was so great because she's like, "Oh, I'm so excited for season 3. It wasn't out yet." She's like, "I get to do so much stuff," and I'm like, "Thank God and good for you," because
yeah,
I mean, we all as Star Trek nerds, we know, she really got basically shown the door in season
yeah,
2,
yeah,
and then for her to come back, thank God, and truly had so few moments during the 7 seasons of Next Gen where
Yeah.
there were really great Beverly episodes. So no, I was thrilled with that. I agree with you, and I love the young cast. I certainly hope that eventually we get to see.
Legacy. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hearing mixed messages.
Yeah, likewise.
A lot of rumors out there.
I think it was there, and I'm sure that I'm sure everybody wants it to be made, except necessarily, possibly. I mean, I think obviously the situation with Paramount and
Kurtzman or no, or
well, actually,
Skydance.
Paramount and Skydance.
Yeah, the new company.
The
Yeah,
TV Skydance TV now is in charge because Paramount TV doesn't exist anymore. So there's,
right.
I mean,
Yeah,
who
who
knows
knows?
what's going to happen? I mean, there's so much change now.
Well, and I want and I'm curious too of your thoughts because I know you're a big Doctor Who fan as well. Um, I we don't know when we're getting. Well, they haven't really announced the release date of season two, and now there's all the rumors
It's
that that might.
it's they did announce it actually
Oh,
just
did they? Excuse me.
last week actually. I'm
Oh,
pretty sure it's May, end of
okay.
April. It's end of April, end of
Oh,
April.
okay. Well, yeah, we're only a few
Yeah.
weeks away then. Is and we're hearing that maybe Ncuti Gatwa is that might be it for him. That only two seasons and out.
I don't
I
know.
know.
The thing is, look, the reality is that, and all I know, and I'm not privy to any particular behind the scenes thing here. Well, a slight bit, but not hugely. But all I know is that the contract with Disney, the commission was for two. Well, it was for what, 26? Was it 23? But it included the three David Tennant specials, the two Shooty Gatwa seasons, and the two Christmas specials. So. Um, that was the contract. So whether they choose to renew the contract or not, I think is still being decided. I do know, no, I can't say that because I shouldn't know that.
No,
So,
no, yeah, exactly. I
yeah.
don't want you to. Yeah, I don't want to. Not
All,
trying to trick you, my man.
so I'm sure that everybody was contracted for those seasons because those were the seasons. But I will guarantee that if Disney doesn't renew it, Doctor Who will be back in a couple of years with the BBC or with a new funding agreement from somewhere, and it's not going to go away.
I agree.
It will change, and whatever I wouldn't even imagine. I think if there was a commission for a third season and Ncuti agreed to reappear, Russell would probably do it if he's so willing. But if it doesn't happen, I'm quite certain somebody else will come along. The show will get a refresh. Um, to be honest, the thing is, as much as you can see all the money that's been spent, and now that it's there, those sets are there anyway, no matter what. You can see the money being spent on it, but looking
Oh
more
yeah,
expensive doesn't necessarily make it a better show, because I think there have been better stories told in previous episodes. Quite honestly, I like it. I love the energy of it. I love the actors always. I like a lot of things Russell's trying to say. I've enjoyed the show more on less money.
I get it. No, I understand, man. And again, I go dip back into classic Who episodes, and you're right that they were effective and everything with less money, and it is possible. How about the Bond Amazon thing?
I've
No,
never
no,
been
no,
a massive Bond fan particularly, but
no.
I can see that there's a world there to exploit, because he's one character in a larger world. So
Sure,
what about 004, 005, 006? And we've seen hints of those in previous Bond movies.
sure.
And even
Sean
indeed
Bean.
in the last Daniel Craig one, there was a different
Yes,
007. So,
absolutely.
why not exploit that? Because you could if you get James Bond in just the movies, why not exploit the larger landscape in streaming shows? Jack Ryan showed how successful that can be as an idea. I know we're getting a Jack Ryan movie, but those were terrific seasons. Again, like Day of the Jackal was a terrific series. So why not do that in the Bond world? I can see that. You can see
Look,
that there's a huge, like Star Wars, there's a universe to exploit.
no, I hear you, man. And again, I think there have been, as I've been saying, I mean, initially I'm like, because I really love I mean, I'm a big Bond fan. Mostly I've loved what the Broccolis did. I wasn't, sorry for burping, everybody. The Ozempic side effect. I'm always bloated and burping. The No
Just
Time to
wait till
Die.
we start farting, John. It'll just be the end of the whole
No, no,
podcast.
no, don't fear not. And thankfully we've got an ocean between us. You don't have to worry about me farting. So, but I got to be honest. I still haven't seen No Time to Die because I don't want to see James Bond die. And I know the broad strokes of the film and everything. And it's so funny because someone will talk about it and go, yeah, maybe I should watch it. And then a couple days I'm like, no, 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 I still don't want to watch it. But
I'll be honest, it's not the best of them, I
well,
will
and
say.
that's what and then truly that's what I was going to say, Brian, because I really loved a lot of things about the Craig era, but I
Hmm.
also feel like a lot of it was hit and miss. Sometimes not their fault. The writing strike that happened during Quantum of Solace
Yep,
certainly
yep,
didn't help
yep.
that
That
movie.
really did cripple it.
But I felt like Spectre was a missed opportunity
Yeah,
having Christoph Waltz as Blofeld, but then
yep,
it's his brother, and as someone else pointed out, it's like, yeah, wasn't that the plot of Austin Powers 3? It's like,
yeah.
no, you're supposed to invent things and then they parody you. They don't, you're not supposed to do it in
I
reverse.
mean, I think I still think Casino Royale is still the best, I think.
Incredible movie,
Yeah,
incredible movie,
completely
absolute. My God,
reinvented Bond. I know it was born, post-born, so there was an element,
yeah.
but nonetheless, I just thought it just, yeah, it was a fantastic movie. Humanized the character, gave him real personality for the first time. So it wasn't a cipher. Action was terrific. Direction was superb. Story was tight. I adore that movie. It's the one of all of them. It's the one I will rewatch happily anytime.
Could could not agree more, man. Eva Green, my God, as Vesper,
Yeah,
Jesus,
yeah,
and heartbreaking, my God. Again,
hmm,
it's like, that which we hadn't seen since maybe On Her Majesty's, and even
yeah.
then, don't disrespect
No, I
to
like that movie
Lazenby.
too. I like
Oh,
that
it's a
movie
great.
too.
That's the thing. Like, great Lazenby, a lesser actor compared to the others that have played the role. But that said, he was still serviceable enough. And oh my God, that's when
Powerful
Tracy dies.
story. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh my God. And that wonderful last line of his too.
yeah. And
Don't you
she's
see
only
we have
sleeping. Yeah.
yeah, well, we have all the time in the world. That's the
Oh
song.
yeah,
That's the Louis Armstrong song. And it's like, oh man. And then I always thought it was cool that I forget which Roger Moore film, but the pre-credit sequence started with him at Tracy's grave. And it's like, it is the
yes,
same guy. It is the
yeah,
same story, which I loved. And again, that was what I appreciated about the Craig arc. But yeah, I just like I said, I was like, oh, don't kill him. And then because they killed him, and I know at the end of the movie, James Bond will return. It's like, yeah, we know. I mean, it's just like we were saying about Doctor Who. It's like, no, man, these IPs, they're here to stay. Every
yeah.
every mistake as perceived by the audience that maybe Marvel has made since Endgame, it's like they are one great movie or TV show away from righting the ship. And I really believe that. Now they've got to put a couple together. I don't know if you're currently watching Daredevil on Disney.
I was gonna wait till it was done and then
Okay.
binge. Um,
Yeah,
but
sure.
it's gonna have to be honest, it's gonna have to be go some because those three seasons on Netflix were about as good as you get for that character. I still think that first season, anybody you can't beat that hallway fight. That
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
visually, just I mean, it was so inventive, but it's all in camera. There's no CGI. It's just real. And it was almost disappointing when he got the Daredevil costume because that what was the fear the Man
Man
Without
Without
Fear.
Fear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I just wonderful Johnny artwork. But
Oh my
again,
God,
that
yeah.
costume that they used for that again, that was terrific. But again, the Elektra stuff, I really like the defense. I like that whole run actually. I mean,
I'm with you.
yeah, that whole thing, the Defenders show was terrific too. I loved it.
And anticipating the new series, I went back and watched the Stick episode from
Oh
episode
yeah,
one. And just as we were talking about, both in Redcoat and in Luthor, um, it's those great conversations between Matt and Stick. And Scott
yeah,
Glenn was just so
wasn't he?
perfect.
Yeah,
Oh my God. And that's a great, I always love finding these single episodes. I felt in the Titans TV series, when they first introduced Jason Todd, I'm like, this is something that you can watch. This is probably one of the best representations of the series and could be a self contained story that you can appreciate and then decide if you want to keep watching it or not. And Titans was hit and miss, but I thought that was great. I got to meet David Chase, the Sopranos creator,
oh
and we
yeah,
talked about that first season episode when Tony takes his daughter to visit colleges and he suddenly recognizes a guy that's been a former mobster that was in the witness protection program. And the orders are, if you ever see him, you got to kill him, or whatever. So he's got to, what do I do? I'm here with my daughter and I'm trying to convince her that I'm not the horrible person. She knows a little bit about the business, and he's got to go kill this guy. And I talked to Chase, and he said, "Oh yeah, if the series hadn't been greenlit, I would have made a movie just with that episode and expanded it a little bit."
Interesting.
And yeah, it's those and it's as you've been saying, Brian. It always comes down to great writing, and that's what we need. So did you see New World Order, the Cap movie?
Yes,
And
that was not great writing.
no, it was not. No, it was not. I appreciate your candor because, and it's funny. I see the shield behind you near your window, and
Oh
that's why I
yeah,
figured.
that's the ultimate model,
Oh, there you go. Oh yeah, bring it over, man. That's
the
fantastic.
ultimate cat
Ah,
model. Yeah,
yeah, sure.
yeah.
Fantastic. Excellent, man.
Um,
Very, very cool. But yeah, man, and I don't know how much you've read about it post its release. They really blew it with Isaiah Bradley. I
I
that
did.
that oh
There
and
was a
Robert.
they locked him up for most of the movie. He was the most that relationship between the two caps. That's the movie, right?
Amen, son. I am so with you. And also, even the new Falcon, and even the few scenes we got with the three of
Yeah,
them. And as I understand it, they were planning on having an action scene with the three of them, maybe taking on the Serpent Society,
yeah,
and we
because
were going to get Isaiah back in a Captain America suit. And it's like, yes, that's
yeah,
what we need. That's what we
legacy.
want.
That whole thing was about Sam's legacy, Steve's legacy, Sam living up to it. What better way than to bookend it with the before Steve and the after Steve with
Amen.
those two guys?
Yep.
Um, and again, the legacy of passing the Falcon on to the other guy, and but it all became about
Ross.
Ross, yeah, and
And a
that's the
movie and a movie
least
that's
interesting thing.
a 17-year like gap between that first Ed Norton movie and this, and it's like, and again, I'm a nerd, man. I've watched them all, and it's like, yeah, I know this story, and they I guess kind of explained everything, but it's like, what does this have to do with Sam Wilson being Captain America? Nothing, nothing.
Nothing. No, what it was that somebody had this bloody idea about the Red Hulk and whatnot, and they didn't have a Hulk movie to shoehorn it into, which is where it bloody well should have been shoehorned into with the Hulk movie. Because they can't do a freaking Hulk movie because of the Universal stuff. So,
You got it, man. Exactly. That's why
but
I
it
know.
didn't.
And it's
It did not belong in that film. Even if it was in that film, the film really should have been about Sam and Isaiah and
yeah,
Steve and Steve's
yeah,
legacy because that's what the film, yeah.
yeah.
I don't think anything was wrong with the cast. I don't think
Oh
necessarily
no,
the direction was particularly problematic, but the story just wasn't there, and I just
I
didn't care actually ultimately.
I hear you, man. No, it was watered down Winter Soldier
Yeah,
combined
and
with the
but
sequel.
things that's a great movie. That is arguably the best Marvel movie. So
I agree.
Um, it's almost flawless that movie, almost from start to finish. It just every scene is absolutely essential, moves all the characters along. Every character in it has something important to contribute to the overall story, and it's iconic almost all the time. Steve is just extraordinary as a character in that. From everybody remembers the lift scene, but then it's the leaping out the plane. I don't know how where they came up with this idea of
Yes.
leaping out without a parachute, but anyway. Um,
Yeah.
but all of that, the boat, the fight with Batroc, it just
Well,
moments and the layer upon layer of intrigue in it. It was
from the moment he jumps out of the plane to him climbing on the ship, and then just systematically taking out the
yeah,
Hydra agents as he gets to Batroc, I'm like, that is Captain America,
yeah,
man. That
yeah,
is a comic
absolutely
book
is
come to life, and it was so
perfectly.
well executed. My God,
But
absolutely.
it was all of it was the perfect 70s spy movie dressed up as a superhero
Yes.
drama. But the thing is, it was important because they took away everything Steve believed he understood about himself and the people that he worked with and the world he lived in. But ultimately, it was about Steve trying to help his friend, and that is kind of the version is what we got with Sam and Isaiah, and that kind of should have been what it. If they were going to go there, just do it.
Well,
But
here's hoping Secret Wars might have Isaiah come back. And also, given that Ross is alive, my suspicion is especially with Secret War, that we might see Ross's Hulk and Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, and maybe even Tatiana Maslany as She-Hulk,
That
and
would be
we'll have
good. The Hulks,
something like
yeah.
that. Because yeah, I especially given how much they gave us of the Red Hulk in the trailers and the commercials, it's like he was on screen for like 10 minutes. It's like
I know. Killed by
okay,
blossoms
yes, yes. Well,
and a
anyway,
really shitty speech.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is yeah, no, no, no. Well, and also, frankly, I felt Bucky's speech to Sam rang hollow, and I'm like, I'm sorry, and I'd be curious of your opinion. I think Sam Wilson needs the serum. The serum. I don't buy that. Well, you're a great Captain America because you're you. It's like, no, man. I'm
No,
sorry.
no.
And
It
again,
was
I
like
think
interesting. It'd land somewhere and then spend a long time running from one place to another. It's like, dude, take the injection. I was thinking that all the way through. Dude, take the serum.
I'm
Just
so glad you said that because truly, man, it's like, and I always feel like I'm walking a tightrope when I say this because I'm like, no, 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 you don't get it. First of all, Anthony Mackie is a good actor, a damn good
yeah.
actor, and Sam Wilson has been a great character, but I don't know. I don't buy that. Well, he's got a suit that's made of vibranium, and he's got atom, whatever, and there's Stark technology. I'm
I
like,
mean, honestly,
he's
there is no way he could have survived more than 10 seconds against a Hulk. Honestly, even with the vibranium and the wings. And it's
that's
just
that was my
I mean,
thought.
honestly, the vibrations alone would have shattered his skull, even with the vibranium. It just no, it was ludicrous. Just you don't
Yeah,
buy it.
no, and
No, I know, I get it. I get it.
yeah,
I get it.
yeah. What are you gonna
But
do? I know.
it
Did
was
you?
fine. It just wasn't good.
Yeah, and he deserved better. Frankly, the
Yeah,
character
he
and the
did because
actor,
I thought the TV series was terrific.
I completely agree. It's my favorite of the streaming shows.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, and I expect. I know this was supposed to have been another a sequel show, but Um, they couldn't afford to
Incredible.
do the Hulk in the sequel show, so
Oh,
they had to spend the money in the movie. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, again, we'll
I
see.
have kind of high hopes for Thunderbolts as being an outfielder. You know, like
Me too.
Guardians was. You know, the original Guardians movie.
Right.
Nobody expected that to be what it was.
100%. I know. I always talk about how when I was talking to Casada and Bendis when they were
Yeah,
still on the Marvel movie panel, and Casada's like, "We're doing Guardians," and I'm like, "Why?" I'm like, they're C and D level heroes, and he's like, "We know what we're doing." I'm like, "Okay," and the same thing about Winter Soldier in a good way. Bryan knows how much I love, as you mentioned, 70 spy movies. He's like, "You love 3 Days of a Condor." I'm like, "Yes, I do." He
yeah,
goes,
right.
it's Captain America's as 3 Days of the Condor. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm in. That's great. So again, I was glad I was proven wrong about Guardians. I'm hopeful for Guardians. I liked in the What If cartoon, the one episode from the most recent season where they had Red Guardian and Bucky
Oh,
working
I haven't
together.
seen that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's worth. I mean, I'm kind of hit and miss with What If in general, but I did think that was probably the best episode of this, and it's self-contained. It's
Right.
absolutely so.
I mean, the thing is that the trailers so far for Thunderbolts have been built on characters, and they come across as because again, Yelena when she showed up in Hawkeye was one of the funniest things in it, right? Um, so we've got kind of in the old Hitch household, we've got high hopes for the Thunderbolts movie, that it'll be a lot of fun. If that scene with them in Red Guardian's car is anything to go by, that'll be. If that's the tone of the film, I think we'll enjoy it. But
How about Fantastic Four?
I don't know. I was supposed to go. CB invited me to the set visit they all set up for a bunch of artists and writers.
Wow,
But it was literally the week before I was due to go out to the New York Comic Con. And given that I was away for 2 weeks of that month, I just couldn't take another day off because I was trying to get an issue out. And, you know,
sure, sure.
so I had to say no in the end, which is a shame. I would have loved because it's literally just 20 minutes from the house because Shepperton, where his studios is very close to where
Oh,
I live. So no,
because yeah, I assumed it. And like an idiot, I assumed that it was something in the States and that you couldn't go. But
no,
no, it
no,
was
they
even
shoot over
close.
here.
Oh
Marvel have
yeah,
an enormous permanent presence at Shepperton. So since Captain America, for the first Avenger, they've been shooting well, a lot of their movies. I think the plan is to shoot the Avengers movies here as well.
wow,
So I might wangle a set visit to one of those just so I can take the kids along and like be cool dad for a day.
sure.
Um, So, do you know, do you know I worked on the Josh Trank Fantastic Four movie?
I No, Brian, that's the first I've heard of it. And truly, I'm so disappointed because I loved Chronicle, his movie prior to Fantastic Four.
Look, privately, I'll tell you the whole story about that one.
Okay.
But there was a time early on. This was so the early on, very early on. It was Josh Trank, the writer, whose name will come back to me because he's been very successful since. And me, and it was the bad guys were going to be Annihilus and the Mole Man, and Doom would be introduced, Galactus would be introduced, and a sequel would be Galactus, and Doom would be the third one. That was the original plan anyway, but it was above their heads in the studio, the highest level of the studio. They were basically they were told, we were told, that's a Marvel movie, and we don't want a Marvel movie. Um, so other things happened and it went the way it went, and there's a lot of background story to that. I will not talk about publicly because it's personal for people involved. So, but I did design the shit out of a lot of stuff from the portal to the negative zone to um, cool scenes, the whole Mole Man stuff, the Nihilus I designed. I didn't get to Galactus at that point, but um, so there's always been, for me, there's always been a huge amount of potential for the Fantastic Four to work. So the fact that they're embracing a kind of 60s science fiction and Galactus, properly Galactus, it's like, yeah, why not? Just so I'm, I will confess I'm not sold on the casting, but let's see if
Neither
it
am I,
works.
frankly. Neither
Let's
was
see
I.
if let's see if it works in the film. Because
Sure.
I will be to be fair, when they announced Chris Evans as Captain America, I was not sold on the casting. And then I went on a set visit because they were shooting. So Kevin Feige invited me to go along, and um, so I went along and watched them shooting for a day, and Evans was just absolutely iconically Captain America, and he inhabited that role throughout the entire film. It's just hard to imagine anybody else could have done it better. I'm sure there could have been other actors, but nonetheless, from what we'd seen of Chris Evans, I did not think of him as Captain America, and yet he just built that beautifully as a role.
I agree. There's a maturity to his Steve
Mhm.
Rogers portrayal that you didn't feel when he was Johnny Blaze and some of
No.
his other great performances. And I agree with you. I think a great actor. I wasn't as put off, but I was initially with some of the Fantastic Four casting. But that said, the trailer made me feel better. And I know
Well,
that some
yeah,
people don't like
yeah.
the Thing's voice.
Yeah, but
That
the
it's a
thing,
little
it should
too
be his voice. Why shouldn't it be his voice? Because
sure.
why get somebody to play him if you're going to have his voice in there? And the thing is that, and this was certainly something that was done wrong in the previous movie. Um, Ben isn't the Hulk. He's shorter than Reed. He's still the same height he was when he was not Rocky. He's just Rocky. But why wouldn't he have his own voice? It just I don't imagine him talking like his gargling gravel. He should sound like Ben. He should be recognizably Ben because Alicia recognizes him as Ben when she hears him speak. So he's got to be Ben. There's a lot of reasons why that makes a lot of sense. I know, but people have their own preconceptions, I guess, and they're built on not necessarily always understanding the material. So, whatever.
And again, this has nothing to do with the movies, but I was just talking to a friend an hour or so before you and I were talking, and then we brought up. I always like to bring up Ben Grimm and Victor Von Doom's relationship because we always get the two intellectuals fighting each
Yeah,
other, Reed and Victor. But I love, and I think Grant did it best when he did one of his mini series where it was just Doom and the Thing, and Doom is like Grimm and it's great the whole time. Things like Vic, and he calls him Vic, not Victor. Calls him Vic because these guys have been having the same problem since college, and
yeah.
I love that about them that they've known. And it's like, as far as Doom is concerned, That's the dumb jock that I hated in college. And as far as Ben is concerned, that's that twerpy idiot that thought he was so fucking smug and smart. And he's an idiot. And they just both think the other is an idiot. And that's why I love that relationship even more than the Reed Victor chess match. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they pull this one off.
I'm hip.
Um, yeah, and obviously it's going to feed into the Avengers movies and whatnot. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I guess we'll see. They need to do something because it's
Well, at least with Daredevil, Thunderbolts, and the FF, at least I'm excited about some upcoming Marvel projects. And I have to be honest, since Endgame, half the time I'm saying, okay, I guess. I mean, listen, Catherine Hahn is a brilliant actress.
Mhm.
I really wasn't up for watching a miniseries about the Fantastic Four as babysitter.
No, I haven't
And
seen
I
it
know
myself.
and I know they developed it well beyond that, and really has nothing to do with their portrayal of the character in the streaming show. But it's like an Agatha Harkness movie. I'm like, who or series? I'm like, who was asking for that?
I suppose they're building that off the character in the One Division story, and of course we've got the
Of
Vision
course,
story coming up by
yes,
written by
Terry Metalis. Yeah, oh
exactly
yeah,
start Picard season 3. Thank you very much. Um,
indeed, indeed.
yeah, and actually, I really like the Shang-Chi movie. I wish we'd had a sequel already. Because again, that had nothing to do with the larger Marvel universe. It was just its own thing. It was fun.
Could not agree more. I think that was the exception, and I really love the way and even the subtle changes they made that they
Hmm.
had to, because obviously when they created Shang-Chi, it was still they also still had now I'm blanking,
Bruce
Sax Rohmer's
Lee.
character. Well,
Bruce
no,
Lee. Yeah.
Sax Rohmer's character as the
Oh,
bad guy,
okay.
Fu Manchu.
Fu Manchu. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, originally that was his father, and I didn't mind the change that they made for the
I
movie and
wasn't
stuff.
so invested in the comics anyway. I just enjoyed the
Oh, okay.
movie. I actually really enjoyed the. I know I'm alone in this, but I really enjoyed the Eternals movie.
I've only seen about 15 minutes. I really have to sit down with it, and especially now that they brought the Celestial back, and that however, that's how they're waving adamantium into
Yeah,
the MCU as opposed to the 616, I suppose. But
yeah.
that's fascinating that Fox didn't want it to look like a Marvel movie, man. I kind of felt that was the great mistake of the J.J. Abrams Star Wars movies, or the sequel trilogy, in terms of they really weren't connected. And it's like, well, you're telling a three-part story. Why are they so disjointed? And it's because they really just didn't pay attention to what Marvel was doing across the street, I think.
Plus, I don't think there was ever the intention of it being that sort of trilogy. It was just going to be three. I
Really, you
mean,
don't think so?
nobody really. There was no plan. Nobody knew what they were doing, movie to
Well,
movie.
that's
JJ remade the New Hope and shot the shit out of it, but it was. But then, there's other than the horses, I actually really enjoyed the second one of those. I could have done
well,
without the casino and the horses, but
you see, and my problem was with the third movie where the horses are on top of the Star Cruiser or
oh
whatever, and
yeah,
they're like, I'm like,
the bloody horses again. Um, I know
yeah,
that the third movie was ludicrous. Honestly, it embraced fantasy as a whole thing. It was like Lord of the Rings done badly, um,
yeah.
and it was just like none of that was really. If you'd intended to get to that point, the first two movies really were not the way to get to that point.
I'm with you,
Anyway,
man. I'm with you. Hitch, we can wrap.
I know.
I don't mean to wrap on a negative. So again, I will point out Superman: Last Days of Lex Luthor, Black Label, Volume Two, fantastic story. It would help if you read the first issue, but really, if you want to just jump in, you can, because they give you more than enough to explain what's going on. But it's outstanding, and truly Redcoat as well. Just such a joy to read and look at.
Thank you.
So yeah, keep up the great work with the Ghost Machine,
Oh,
and
we'll be at it forever, honestly. This we aren't going anywhere. It's just only this is literally the basement level of our pyramid build, so we've got a long time to go yet.
when I talk to you, it makes me obviously want to not only talk to Jeff, but also Francis Manipul and
Oh, you
Tomasi, and
should.
you
These
know,
guys, you should get Pete, Peter, and Francis on as a three-way because those guys, I mean,
it's a good
what
idea.
they're building on that stuff is terrific too. So,
No,
uh,
they're two of my favorite guys. So yeah, absolutely, man. And Fabek came on with Jeff
Oh,
to
cool.
set up what
I'll
they're
have to go and
doing.
look at
And
that one. I missed that one.
yeah, it's on there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a video as well as an audio. So yeah,
You
yeah,
should
yeah.
get Jeff and Gary on and talking about Geiger too. Not that I'm telling you how to run your
No,
business,
no, but Hitch, you're
John,
right.
but
No, but you're right. And truly, I've been wanting to talk to Gary since he and Jeff were doing Superman back in the day,
oh yeah, God, how long ago is that now? 15, 20
20
years?
years ago or
Yeah,
something,
20
like
years.
close to 20. Yeah,
I know,
yeah, yeah.
I think Jeff's the only writer Gary's worked with in that time.
Wow, man. And I also heard about his hobby that he likes exotic animals.
When I first met Gary, before October 23,
Okay.
where I met Gary again, although we'd stayed in a very occasional touch, right? This is a little anecdote for you. Gary and I were doing, we were in our late 20s, it's 20, yeah. So, we were both doing, Gary was still living in England then. And we were both doing a convention in Paris. So we traveled over together. We met on the Eurostar train and traveled over together. And we spent a very long weekend, longer than planned, because there was a storm that blocked the tunnel, so we couldn't get back through on our way home. And Travis Charet and his partner Rochelle, who was also my previous editor on Authority, were living in Paris at the time too, and they were at the show, so we hung out with them too. We had a fabulous time, absolutely terrific time. Um, and then that was pretty much that was the last time I saw Gary until yeah, I mean obviously we spoke when we were building up the ghost machine, but in person that's the last time I saw Gary. But bizarrely, in that time, Gary and I had both got married and had children, and we both have two boys the same age with the same names.
Oh, wow.
I
Crazy.
mean, are completely unknown to each other. So we've both got two boys the same age. Here's Albert and Edward, Albert and Eddie, and mine are Ted and Bertie, but they're the same names. It's
Certainly.
how coincident and the same ages. So how, in that intervening years, we like lived these weird parallel lives.
Contact Ripley. That's
I know.
fantastic.
So we were obviously destined to come back together as foundational members of Ghost Machine.
That's excellent, man. No, that's great. Everybody, the Redcoat first arc is collected in trade. It came out a couple of weeks
It
ago, but
is.
they're on issue 10. So check that out. And again, Black Label, Superman: Last Days of Lex Luthor. Excellent stuff, man.
Thank you,
From
John.
Bryan Hitch, Mark Waid, and Jeff Johnson, Mark Waid, or rather Jeff Johnson, Bryan Hitch, for Redcoat. So yeah, no, it's always a pleasure, bud. And truly, let's reconvene when the next arc finishes, and
Yeah.
we can have a new talk.
Yep.
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
we'll do. Probably late, probably autumn by the time that all happens. But maybe you should come out to New York. Do some
All
live.
right, man.
Bring your camera. Do some live shoots.
Oh God, that would be great. I know, man. I know. You're right. Geez. I know, but you guys are always so busy at the cons.
Ah, we'll
I,
always make
I,
time for you. You know
I
that.
well, no, and I appreciate that, but truly, like, I don't, I stopped doing floor interviews years ago, almost, more than 10 years ago, because I'm like, well, everybody's doing that. And also
Yeah.
it's like,
Okay.
I like, and truly, since adding
Yeah.
video, I like this. I like
Yeah.
us just hanging out, relaxed. You're not in a rush, you're enjoying your wine.
That's true.
God
You
bless
get
you.
10 minutes otherwise, don't you? 10 minutes with no
Yeah.
background noise and a couple of questions. And
Well,
yeah.
yeah, and also, I mean, listen, everybody wants to pump the product for those 10 minutes, and I
Yeah,
respect
you're
that. But
right.
it's like, but it's this stuff that I know the viewers and listeners, this is what they like. They like hearing the hidden stories, the personal stories they don't know. And a lot of times they'll bond with you. I always give the example of, oh, hey, you put ships in a bottle. I do that too. Well, the next time at a convention, I'm going to make sure that I talk to, Dan Moore about putting ships in a bottle. It's like, all right, great. And then they're thrilled. It's like, hey,
There's
man.
something I didn't know about Dan.
Well, it's not really Dan Moore. I was just throwing
Oh,
the
is
name
it?
out.
Okay, because
Yeah, no, I
it's
pulled that out of
terrific.
my
I love
ass.
his
Yeah.
work.
Oh my God, he's killing it with Wade. Absolutely, man.
It's so
But no,
quick as well, though, annoyingly fast. I
that's
keep
what they
thinking,
tell me.
I remember Wade telling me that, and I was like, he must be a studio. There's got to be four of him
Or
because it's like the
clones.
whole thing, it's like
I hear you, man.
hats
No,
off
I
to him
was
because it's like John Byrne speed, but even better. It's like
Jack
quality.
Kirby speed almost.
Yeah, yeah,
You know.
I
Yeah,
gotta
man.
get faster, John. I've got to be doing 5 pages a day now. I've got to catch up to these youngsters.
As always, Hitch, I appreciate it. Stay on the line because I want to
Always a
hear your
pleasure.
stories. I want to hear your stories you can't tell on the air. So unless you got
Yeah,
to
as
run, I
always.
respect that.
I have to be
Uh,
quick. I need a wee.
oh my God, I'm so sorry. Absolutely, man. But everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay safe. Stay happy. Stay healthy.
Thanks, John.